Hello, everybody, and welcome to They Live by Film.
Hey. Who are you stealing my lines for?
Look who's back.
Welcome to They Live by Film, a platform dedicated to bringing you film discussion and interviews from around the world. I am Adam Lundy, and I am back with my glorious co-hosts, Christopher Haskell and Zachary K. Bryant. Hello.
Family,
Hello,
Hello,
hello.
gentlemen. How are we?
what's up, Adam?
Family brought us back together again.
Well, it was that, and Adam kept getting annoyed. I couldn't remember the intro.
You know what? So just as a peek behind the curtain for our listeners, I've still been editing and uploading these episodes as they've been going out, even though I haven't been actually on the show. So, I've been listening to the intros the whole time. And every time you got so close, even the last episode of Lars von Trier, you were so close. But there was one thing you kept doing every time that's wrong.
Oh, what is it?
I never say the word podcast. Not once does the word podcast leave my mouth. I say platform.
That's where I knew it never sounded right. I was like, there's something I'm messing up, and I never bothered to go back and listen.
That was it. I never once uttered a word podcast.
We were downgraded to just a podcast in your absence.
Well, see, it stems from back when we had the website and everything like that. I kind of changed the platform to be more encompassing. It probably should be just podcast now these days, in terms of how we scaled things back a little bit. But that would involve me editing a note that I wrote 2 years ago, and I don't want to do that. So,
it's there
I still have to read it every time. I can't do that off the cuff, even though it is one line. Anyway, gentlemen, how are we? How's everything been? I'm sure you're all very depressed while I was away. So
yeah, we bit off more than we could chew. We said, you know what, we should do Lars.
Look, it could have been worse. Before I went away, we had discussed, got you guys just doing a month of rape revenge movies or Takashi Miike. It could. I genuinely think it could have been worse.
No, rape revenge movies end on a good note, right?
It's catharsis.
I suppose. I guess
they end on the revenge bite.
I guess
we just had 2 months of everything being terrible and everything falling apart, and there being no hope.
Yeah, I guess that's a depressing way to spend a month.
What have you been watching anything, Adam? What have you been doing?
Okay. This is where I run through everything I've watched in the last 3 months, super quick. So I'm looking at my letterbox. So I'm gonna go off where I left off, which last thing I logged before I went away would have been Full Metal Jacket, of course, for the last episode of the Kubrick series that we did. After that, I watched Spine 1 and 2 of Radiance films. The Working Class Goes to Heaven, which is good, and Yakuza Graveyard, which is not so good. I just don't like Yakuza movies. I just can't get into them. Ishtar, which is mid. I'm sorry, I'm in the Ishtar mid camp. I randomly watched Risky Business. That was okay. I don't know if you guys have seen Risky Business anyway recently, by any chance?
Not since I was a kid.
All right.
Yeah.
Next time, if you ever end up watching Risky Business, this is going to sound so weird, but it makes sense. The film plays out like a Christopher Nolan movie.
Okay.
Just think about that next time. It makes total sense. I know it doesn't make sense, but in terms of how it's edited and stuff, it's like a Christopher Nolan movie. It's so weird. I was watching it going, this is bizarre. Anyway, speaking of bizarre, I watched David Lynch's Dune, which is bad. I'm sorry. I wanted it to be. I wanted to like it, but it's bad. I watched a film called The Spiral Staircase, which is pretty good. Cool little kind of almost like a proto slasher movie. Zach, you'd like it. Came out in 1946. I would recommend it. I think it would be up your alley. I think I recommended it when I watched it back at the end of March.
Yeah, I was just saying, I remember I have it listed, so I was like, okay, why do I have this listed?
I'm pretty sure I put it into our group chat to watch it. It's like a proto slasher movie. It's pretty good. I don't know why, but I watched Prometheus and Alien Covenant. I God only knows what was going through my brain at that time.
Excellent choices.
They're not very good. They're fine. I don't hate them or anything. I don't think they suck. There's definitely worse alien movies out there. Aliens is definitely worse than both of these. But Prometheus is better than Covenant, I think, personally.
I would agree with that. Yeah, I would agree with that. Covenant's got the more schlocky funness to it.
But I just don't like in Covenant that it takes so long for an actual fucking alien to show up. It's only for the last 10 minutes, and where's the alien been this whole time?
Which is the one where she gets her stomach sliced open in 30 seconds?
That's Prometheus. Yeah,
Yeah,
That scene is
it's just
dope.
that
so
scene is
stupid.
that's a good scene. That is a good scene.
No, but then she's
Uh,
like running and jumping and bending her, using all her abs for the next hour.
yeah, but it's the future. So there
Yeah.
you go. Uh, I watched The Killers, that movie that was on that expired on the Criterion Channel. I wasn't
Which
overly
one are you?
impressed.
Because there's like two of those, right?
Yeah, there is. You're right. It's from 1946, the one that was made by Robert Siodmak.
Okay.
Uh, has Burt Lancaster and Ava Gardner in it. I didn't even write a review for it. I wasn't really too fussed about it. I'm sorry, Zach, but I saw Assault on Precinct 13 and I wasn't very impressed.
Whoa.
What,
Very
really? I feel like it'd be
yeah.
up your alley.
Whoa.
No, I, the more I watch John Carpenter movies that aren't Halloween, I'm like, I don't know if I vibe. I don't know if I vibe with John Carpenter outside of Halloween
You know,
because
you can go leave for another couple months if
it's
you like.
I know. I was
it's
like,
just
whoa.
it's just all vibes though. Like just I'd like some plot sometimes.
What?
Just sometimes give me some plot. Like the
Assault on Precinct.
vibes. Yeah, I don't know.
Oh, fuck.
I don't know. Yeah. Well, look, speaking of good movies, though, I watched the best movie of 2024, which was Godzilla X Kong: The New Empire.
That movie's pretty
Um,
fun. It's a Saturday movie. I think I described it as like a Saturday morning cartoon in
that
live
is, it
action.
is such a fucking dope movie. As soon as I saw the poster with Kong with what looked like the Infinity Gauntlet on, I'm like, fuck yeah, I am, I am so ready for this. And then because I watched one movie with apes, I decided to watch other movies with apes, and I finally watched The Dawn and The War of the Planet of the Apes because I
Oh,
hadn't seen those.
those are so good.
Yeah, they're really, really good. I'm looking forward to seeing The Kingdom. I won't get a chance to see it in theater, so I'll wait till it comes on streaming. But yeah, I watched those. They are both really good. I watched this weird little English horror film called The Stone Tape from 1972. Kind of kitschy and it's very low budget, but it's all right. I watched Ghidorah, the three-headed monster, just for the sake of it.
As
I
the original
watched,
one?
yeah, the 1964
Yes.
original one. Watched Late Night with the Devil. That's like one of the sort of newer films I've
Pretty
seen.
solid movie.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty good. Some weird choices, like the whole kind of where they do like the behind the scenes footage, which is suddenly widescreen and full fucking HD. I thought that was a bit of a weird creative choice.
Yeah, it's like
But
they wanted their cake to eat and eat it too. Is what it
yeah,
felt like to me.
exactly. Yeah, it's very obvious they couldn't figure out how to kind of tell all they wanted to in the original format they wanted to do it through. You know, they had to find a way to be able to give what's the fucking word? Not context. What's the word when you give information in a plot?
Exposition.
Exposition. Yeah, they needed a way to give exposition that but they couldn't do it in just the talk show format, so they had to have this extra format in there to do it. So it was fine. I had a good time. But I don't think it was anything amazing or anything like that. But it was fine. I watched True Romance. I thought that was okay.
So we're not going to be
Definitely
doing a Tony Scott run on here.
no, probably not. I thought it was okay. It was fine. Like it was. I had a good time. Don't think it was anything amazing though. Back to Radiance. I watched a couple of Radiance stuff. Planet of the Vampires, the Mario Bava, the one of the new releases that they put out recently. Again, all vibes, no plot. John Carpenter definitely likes this film, I'd say. All vibes, no plot, but it's pretty fun. The production design is really good. I watched Suzu River, which was another Radiance release, which was really good. It's a Chinese film inspired by Vertigo, but also has kind of stylistic flares of like Wong Kar-wai. It's really, really interesting. So I thought it was very good. I think it was on the Criterion Channel recently, if not, maybe still there. If you wanted to catch it. Another Radiance film, Witness in the Cities, was part of their World Noir box set. This was a French film, which is really a really cool premise. Basically, this guy's wife cheats on him, and the wife gets killed by the guy she's cheating with, and he gets off scot-free. So the husband tracks down, kills the guy who killed his wife, but as he's leaving, he gets spotted by a taxi driver. So then he spends the next movie tracking down this taxi driver so he can try and basically kill him off just in case, the police, come after him and give him as a witness or whatever. So it's a cool little premise, very well made. It's very stylish. So I would recommend that if you have that box set anyway. And then I watched 2 anime movies, weirdly enough. I watched The Wind Rises, the Hayao Miyazaki film, which I thought was excellent. The animation is some of the most beautiful animation I've ever seen. It's from 2013. Very, very good. And then it just expired on the Criterion Channel literally a couple of days ago. I watched Your Name, which again was really, really fantastic. Really nicely animated, but kind of different to The Wind Rises. The Wind Rises has that more classic Studio Ghibli look, like hand painted almost, whereas Your Name is a bit more digital, but they still look really good. Both these films have really emotionally charged narratives. Like I was really invested in the story and the characters and stuff like that, which a lot of the time with anime films, for some reason, I find it really hard to get invested with what's going on with the plot. A lot of them are very loose plot wise and can be sometimes a little bit hard to follow. Whereas both of these probably helps. These are fairly grounded stories for the most part. Your Name is interesting because it's essentially a body swap movie. So, like Freaky Friday where people swap bodies. It's essentially that, but it's the people who are swapping bodies in Your Name. It doesn't happen every morning and they don't know each other. So they spend like the film trying to figure out who they are. But then there's a really good twist halfway through, which I won't spoil because I didn't know about it and it blew my mind when it happened. So it expired on the Criterion Channel, but if you get a chance to watch it, if you're interested in anime, I'd really recommend Your Name. It's really, really good. And that brings us to now. So I've watched actually a decent amount of stuff in the last couple of months, even though I've been busy.
Yeah.
So that means the baby has gotten a very interesting.
Look, the baby, right? So this is watched. So since the baby has watched, looking at the dates here of everything, the baby watched Late Night with the Devil. So she got up, she got involved in that. She watched True Romance. I didn't mention that I rewatched Pulp Fiction. So the baby watched Pulp Fiction. The baby has seen the first 2 Fast and Furious movies now, and a bunch of sort of weird Radiance movies and some anime. So very eclectic taste on this child already for a child who's 7 weeks old. So
Where does Pulp Fiction fit for you on vibes versus plot?
Does it have a
I
plot?
I love Pulp Fiction except for the fucking subplot with Bruce Willis. I hate it so much. I was really tempted to skip it because because it takes place last in the timeline. It has no bearing on the rest of the plot. You can remove the entire subplot with Bruce Willis as boxer, and it does not change the movie at all. Nothing changes in the whole movie if you remove it because
All you find out
chronologically
is John
that part.
Travolta's dead. That's all you find
Yeah,
out.
exactly. And who gives a shit? Like, that part chronologically takes place last in terms of the overarching story. So I hate that subplot so much. I despise it. And I was really like, I was watching it with Neve for the first time because she liked True Romance. So I thought, okay, well, Pulp Fiction would be a good film to show her. She liked True Romance. She hated Pulp Fiction. Absolutely, she hated it.
Whoa.
So, but if I was watching it on my own again, like the next time I watch Pulp Fiction on my own, I'm just gonna skip the whole Butch subplot. As soon as it comes up, I'm just fast forwarding because I hate it so much and it adds nothing to the film. If anything, it kills the momentum of the film up until that point.
I have to see it again. I haven't seen. It's probably been 10 years since I've seen Pulp Fiction. I'm a little bit of a Tarantino stan, so I have to go back and watch it again.
Honestly, I always feel oddly judged if I ever post my Tarantino ranking because I have Pulp Fiction at like his bottom 2 or 3.
Nice.
Like I think it's fine. I get why it's important. Like I completely understand why Pulp Fiction's important. But if I'm gonna put in a Tarantino movie, it's probably not gonna be Pulp Fiction.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. I watched all the Tarantino movies, I think last year or the year before, and it was I think it was 4th last in my rankings. So yeah, and that's probably mostly down to the Bruce Willis subplot. If they got rid of that, it probably would be a little bit higher.
I think this happens, right? We've done some directors' runs now. Sometimes the movie they're known for doesn't necessarily mean it's their best one, right? But like maybe not as many people have seen Inglourious Bastards or something, whatever. Like
Which is his best movie.
yeah, I mean,
Well, I'd put maybe second.
are you a Hateful Eight Stan?
No, Jackie Brown.
Oh yeah,
I like Jackie Brown. I have Jackie Brown ahead of Pulp Fiction as well.
Jackie Brown is really cool. Pam Grier is awesome in that. Um, but anyways, well, welcome back. Um, that's an exciting list of movies. There's so many hot takes as you were just like running down that list. I don't even know where to start. I feel like your taste has gotten worse as a father.
The baby has made mistakes.
It's pregnancy brain.
I just can't imagine watching Assault on Precinct 13 and feeling like, meh, there's so much tension in that movie. It's so good.
No,
But it's
the
all
part
right.
where they kill the little girl is funny.
Funny?
Yeah, it just comes out of nowhere. She's like, blam.
That's a fun fact about that. That is the only time Carpenter has ever storyboarded anything. He actually does not storyboard shit. And he did it, honestly, if you go back and watch it, you can kind of tell it's storyboarded because it's like very precise in how
Yeah.
like everything's edited and shot. And it's like, oh yeah, that is the only time he's ever storyboarded.
What a maniac.
Wait, but just I have to. I know this is not a John Carpenter cast, but you like The Thing at least, right?
I don't love the thing. It's good.
Really?
Oh
You
my
don't?
gosh.
Yeah, don't love it. I was actually underwhelmed when I watched it.
Oh my god.
Oh,
I watched it,
boy.
I'm like, huh, that was it. That was pretty cool. But it's like not like the best film of all time or anything. That was cool. Obviously, the special effects are amazing. And it's a cool concept, it's a cool story, but like, I don't know, cool doesn't pay the bills.
I'm just sitting here like dying
What?
inside.
What kind of a quote is that? Cool. We're about to start the Fast and the Furious movies. What do you mean cool doesn't pay the bills?
Hey, look, that's just my opinion, man.
No. I'm not trying to attack you. It's good to have you back. I'm just stunned more than anything.
I should probably rewatch the thing. I haven't watched it in about 4 years, so that's
Uh,
I'm working off old knowledge, I guess.
Speaking of John Carpenter movies, Zach, what have you been watching?
Oh man. So not John Carpenter, unfortunately. Of course, I'll go through a few that I've seen fairly recently. So Furiosa came out, and Furiosa is awesome. I have seen it 3 times in theaters now. So hasn't got to the amount of times I saw Fury Road in theaters, but we're getting there. We're getting
So
there.
you're probably accounting for a good 30% of their total box office, right?
Yeah, unfortunately. Yeah. Yeah. No, there's a guy I saw on I was like glancing through the Mad Max subreddit. There's a dude who saw it for the 13th time yesterday. And I was
Jesus.
like,
Wait, when did it come out?
wow. Last Friday.
Okay.
So
That's
it's been a little over a week.
Yeah. Is that George Miller's or George? Wait, what? What's his name?
Yeah,
George Miller.
Yeah.
Yeah.
George Miller, right? Is that his son?
I don't know, maybe. But
It's Anya Taylor-Joy in a mustache. That's
but no, it's honestly an excellent
Trench
movie.
coat.
It's George Miller doing action movies. It's of course great.
Yeah.
I guess it just doesn't have the appeal that I think Warner Brothers wants it to have. I am so thankful they give him these $150 million budgets to make these movies, and it's like Mad Max does not have the wide appeal to make $500 million at the box office.
See,
I don't know why they keep forcing this.
I'm surprised it's doing so poorly though. It's only because I agree that Mad Max is not it's not like a top tier franchise. It'd probably be like a B tier franchise in terms of popularity. I'm not talking about quality here. I'm talking about popularity, like with mainstream audiences, probably like a B tier franchise, maybe even C tier. But Mad Max Fury Road has just grown so much in reputation since it came out, like what, 10 years ago now, or a little bit earlier, a little bit less than that. Like, okay, maybe not everyone has seen Mad Max Fury Road, but everyone knows about Mad Max Fury Road at this point. It's become just one of the most sort of revered, films of the last 20 years. It ends up on like, top films of all times lists. So I'm surprised it's doing as poor. I don't think it was gonna, like, it's never gonna make Avengers money, but I'm surprised it's doing as poorly as it is.
The only thing that's really going to help it probably will end up being profitable. And Fury Road, they filmed in Namibia in Africa, and of course they didn't get tax breaks for that or anything. They filmed this one in Australia, and Australia footed like 40% of the bill.
That's
Like,
not bad.
yeah, they all. I think Warner Brothers only had to throw in like $90 million out of the $150 million budget. So it'll probably end up profitable. It's just it's not going to look that way. It's not going to be super profitable. It might be enough so we can get 80-year-old George Miller to go out to the outback one more time to make a movie.
It'll make money on video on demand as well. Like I'll be
Yeah.
renting it or buying it when it comes out because obviously I can't go to the theaters these days. So I'm just waiting for it to come out on streaming. Which the fact that it's doing so poorly in the box office actually works out in my favor because it means it's probably going to be on streaming sooner rather
Yeah.
than later because they tend to just dump stuff now. It's like like that. What was that Ryan Gosling movie that came out recently?
Yeah,
Fall
yeah.
Guy or something.
Fall Guy, yeah.
It was in the theaters for like a month, and then they're like, "This is not doing well. Let's dump it
No,
on."
I think it was like 2 weeks. It was crazy. It
Yeah,
got to streaming like insanely fast.
Yeah, I think
So
I
it
think the
works out in
official
my favor.
closeout
I'm
was
happy.
39 days, and I was like, "That's insane for 39
Yeah.
days." Like,
It's crazy turnaround. Like it's a far cry from when we were growing up, and you have to wait 9 months to rent it from Blockbuster. It's a far cry from those days.
Yeah.
What do they talk about, Zach? You might know this, or maybe, I mean, Adam, you might as well, but I know Zach tracks box office. Is it called four quadrants? Is that what they call it when a movie appeals to like all audiences?
yeah. So, and those aren't very as common as people think they are. Most action movies are going to appeal to men under 50.
Yeah.
That's just the reality of it. Mad Max is kind of an odd one because it's honestly tracks pretty well with women, especially the Fury Road and this one track a little bit better with women than most action movies do because Furiosa is a character. Your most recent four quadrant movies are Avatar. Like Avatar appeals to most ages, most genders, most cultures. So
Yeah.
that's why it becomes successful. They're not
You're on
doing
James Cameron's payroll, aren't you?
yeah, pretty much. But I mean, there's a reason he has like fucking three movies in the top four highest grossing films of all time. Like it's if you know how to appeal to people, it works. But I think the box office in general is just down. I mean, Dune 2 is still the highest grossing movie of the year, and I don't particularly remember it doing amazing. It did pretty good. It was definitely profitable, but
There'll be stuff later in the year that kills it. Like Deadpool and Wolverine is going to make so much money.
Yeah, I know it's people are talking about if it's going to beat out Passion of the Christ domestic, which would be huge because it still holds the domestic box office for R-rated movies.
Right. Okay. I thought one of the Deadpool movies bet our Joker.
Deadpool and Joker got worldwide, but they did not hit the domestic total.
Domestic, right?
Yeah, that domestic.
Because obviously
total.
all the crazy Christians went and saw Passion of the Christ 50 million times. I'm guessing. Probably.
Well, which is going to be way funnier if Deadpool breaks it and then Passion of the Christ 2 beats it again because it's coming out in the next couple years.
Wait, is Passion of the Christ 2? What?
Yeah. There, Gibson's coming to do the resurrection story. Like that's
oh my god!
And from what he's talked about in interviews, it's supposed to be like this wild psychedelic movie. I'm like, you know what? Fuck it, Mel, do it. I want to see it.
I just remember that old Family Guy skit from like 20 years ago, where it's like. Where like Peter happens across a copy of Passion of the Christ 2, crucify this, and it's like Jesus wakes up in like the year 2000 and he's hanging out with Chris Rock. It's like that's a very funny Family Guy skit.
I'm just amazed they got Jim Caviezel back. I was like, that dude was struck by lightning 3 times.
He's also insane.
So. Yeah, I mean, he'd have to be. If I got struck by lightning 3 times, I'm saying, God is telling me something here. Like, I don't need to be here.
His brain is probably fried. That's probably what the issue is. With some of the nonsense that he does be spouting.
But beyond that, beyond Fury Road, Furiosa, which I recommend. I know, Adam, you can't go see it. Chris, you should go see it in theaters. You never go to the theaters. Go see it. Take Owen. I actually think, funny enough, it's got some violence in it, but I've always thought they're like lower end of R-rated. Like they're never at the point where it's like, well, we're R, we might as well go all out. So, if he's comfortable and you're comfortable with R-rated movies, you might could take him to it. Beyond that, I saw I had an incident the other day where I went to double feature In a Violent Nature, which is a new slasher movie where they do it from the perspective of the slasher killer, where he's basically Jason. It's a very close to like a Jason thing. Adam, I think you'd dig it, honestly. If you want like a good Friday the 13th movie, this is probably the best one we're going to get, since we're never going to get a Friday the 13th movie again.
What was it called?
In a Violent Nature.
In a violent nature. Okay, I'll add that to my watch list.
Yeah, it's good. And it's one of those movies. It does take itself seriously, but it still like pokes fun at slashers without like being an obvious meta thing. Probably like one. I'll sort of spoil a very small one. There's a part where the characters are like whispering in the woods, and you're not seeing it from their perspective. You're seeing it from the slasher killer's perspective while he's just standing there, and they're just talking at a whisper about their plan, where they're trying to say, he might hear you, and he can obviously hear every single thing they're saying.
Nice.
Like, it's little stuff like that. It's really well shot. It's actually kind of a slow movie, surprisingly. Like, it really takes its time. It's a lot of watching him walk in the woods.
Okay.
It's We'll call it the Gene Dealman here of slasher movies.
Well, I just pulled it up on Letterboxd, added my watch list, and one of the top reviews that comes up is "Give me a cut with Minecraft music playing during the walking scenes." So that makes sense, I guess. It's not streaming anywhere.
It'll be on
only in
Shudder this fall.
theaters.
Yeah.
Shudder this fall. Cool. I'll keep an eye out. It's on my watch list, so Letterboxd usually will send me an email when something in my watch list comes to streaming. So I'll have to keep an eye out for that. Thank you.
And then I double featured that with Deer Camp 86, which was a movie I'd never heard of. Only reason I went to go see it was because I was going to go see it in Violent Nature. And they were showing it for one showing at 10 o'clock at night. And I was like, okay, yeah, it's like 20 minutes after the other one ends. I'll go ahead and watch it. And I would love to tell you more about the movie. 20 minutes in, the fire alarm went off. And so we had to go outside for 30 minutes while the fire trucks, they had to send 2 fire trucks because somebody vaped, which was great.
Oh, for Jesus' sake.
Yeah, see, here they have to do it based on occupancy limits. So the reason they have to send 2 anytime like a theater, like a bigger theater has a fire alarm, even though it's probably nothing, it's based on occupancy. So that's a big thing. And that was annoying. So they had to go check everything, check every door, everything like that, cut the alarm off. And then we got in, they said, the movie's going to be on in 15 minutes. Hour later, my theaters has not come on. I am actually the only person in this theater, so I understand why it was not the priority. So an hour later, I come in. I'm like, hey, are they going to start my movie? And they're like, yeah, they're getting to it. And finally, it comes on. And so when the fire alarm goes off, there's just these guys like going into the woods. This is before the creature starts killing everybody. They're just talking in the woods. And then when they turn it back on, the car is getting thrown around, and this like creature is killing everyone. And I'm like, this is not where we were at. So I go tell the hey guys, y'all might have went too far ahead. They said, oh, okay. Nothing ever changed. The whole movie played. The end showed up. I was like, I guess I'll go tell them again. Went up there and they said, oh yeah. It's like, yeah, we'll put it back. We'll make sure we put it back further. They put it back in the exact same spot. So I just sat there and finished the movie with a lot of missing context. And I was like, well, okay.
I suppose the question is, was it good? Because if it was good without the missing context, then we might have a winner.
Good is kind of an interesting thing. It's a very juvenile movie. Like it's definitely more of a horror comedy, but with like kind of lowbrow humor. I mean, it does, when you have something like that, some of the humor really sticks and it's really funny. And then you just feel like some actors kind of get it and some of them don't. It had some legitimately funny stuff in it. It had some pretty bad stuff too. So I mean, it was a bit of a mixed bag. I wouldn't have regretted seeing it if I didn't have to get home at 1:30 in the morning for a movie that started at 10.
You're so loyal, man. I would have been out of there with a refund like an hour before all the stuff you're saying.
I can't really refund anything because I'm an unlimited member. So I get in for free anyway.
Okay.
Yeah, and then the problem is I live 45 minutes away from the theater. So it's, I was like, I'm not going to come all the way back down here to watch it. So it's like, I might as well just stick around. And then got a ticket on my way home. So that was awesome. So I was like, I should have just went home.
Damn it.
Yeah, so I will leave mine there. I think that's been the majority of what I've been watching besides Fast and Furious.
I've just seen. I'm gonna sound like an asshole, but I'm happy I did it. I was just scrolling through Twitter while you were just telling that story, and I've just seen that Netflix have just randomly added Godzilla -1, and even in Ireland it's here.
Yes, I saw that the other day because I watched that new Miike movie, and I was like, oh, they both kind of showed up surprisingly. I was like, cool.
I'm so happy. I've been wanting to see that since it came out, and I never got a chance to see it in theaters. So sorry for interrupting, but
oh no, you're good.
I know what I'm watching tonight.
Yeah, it's like wow. For once, Netflix gives a good surprise, and it's not price hikes. So, Chris, finish us up. What have you been watching?
Yeah, yeah, no, it's interesting. You started telling me about that Mickey movie the other day, so I'm curious if because when Netflix first started out and they were shipping to the home,
Hmm.
they were like a really good go-to place for genre stuff.
Yeah, their
Um,
catalog was awesome. We That's where I started. I started out with the DVD service.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
And that was the way to go. And it was great, man. I've seen so many, or I saw so many movies from that mail service. And even when they first started going streaming, they were great with like really good documentaries, pretty good with horror. Um, and then they've just, I don't even know what they are now. Um, but yeah, it'd be great if they started getting some genre stuff back. Um,
Yeah, I think one of the biggest mistakes, and I mean, I can say that Netflix is obviously very successful. I really thought when they stopped the password sharing, that would have been a big hit for them. It ended up doing nothing, unfortunately, because the password sharing stuff is stupid. But I mean, they moved to 50% of their stuff being originals, and I think that really hurt their quality. I used to watch some wild shit on Netflix, even early streaming days, and I don't know, I don't find as much to watch. I keep it for Alicia because she likes Bridgerton. So that's pretty much why I have Netflix.
that's
And I'll search through there every once in a while and see if I can find anything.
a good question. Why do we
You're
still
telling
have?
me that you don't sit down and watch Selling the OC and selling Sunset and all that shit.
I don't even know what those are. I did watch the one of their fucking stupid ass reality shows about where all these horny 20-year-olds end up on an island and they're not allowed to have sex. Like I watched
Oh,
that. It's some true brain rot. Really
oh yeah.
entertaining.
Although selling OC and selling, it's all the same. Yeah, it's
It's
all
all the
just
same.
brain rot.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So selling Sunset is basically all these bimbos with fake tits selling $1 million houses to rich people. So and they also have bitch fights in the office while their manager just sits there and lets it all happen. He's a terrible manager. It's not a way to run your business, but yeah.
Yeah, it's some good
Uh,
brain rot on there if you're looking for some reality shows. I've definitely turned them on out of boredom.
Speaking of brain rot, we saw a Melville movie for the film club that I wish more people saw because
I'm going to be watching it today or tomorrow, so I'll know what you're talking about here soon.
oh no, it's
Bro,
such a
that was your pick and you didn't watch
I
it?
know.
What?
I've been watching Fast and Furious this week, man. It took up all my
Okay.
nights.
and and
It's been on my watch list for like a year and I still haven't watched it, so you're better than me.
plus Furiosa 13 times. Um, but Silence of the Sea is an interesting one because it's like it's one of these ones where it's primarily somebody talking. But the world built around this Nazi soldier who's basically, commandeered a French family's home. And the whole movie is him like justifying that he like loves the French and he loves culture and you know, he's so happy to be here and trying to humanize himself to this family while he's in their living room, staying there because they're invading their country. And it's semi based on a true story where there was a book that was going around that was teaching the French how to quietly protest the invasion. Um, and so, anyways, interesting piece of history, cool movie. I liked it way more than I expected to. I mean, I shouldn't say that because Melville's kind of one of the goats, but um, it was very well done. And on the opposite end of the art house spectrum, I watched. Was trying to pick a movie like a fun kind of '90s movie with my watching partner. I think Adam, you haven't. Um, I don't know if you've been hearing that her name's Holly. We've been sort of just kind of watching some movies together and
Hmm.
enjoying chatting and stuff. So we're trying to pick one. Landed on Fair Game with Alec Baldwin and Cindy Crawford. And I don't know if y'all remember that at all when that came out, but that movie's hilarious. It's exactly what you'd want out of a '90s action movie. I've always said I don't like the '90s that much for movies, but some of the action movies in the 90s are winning me over a little bit.
You're hitting
Like,
the nostalgia era, man. That's how I am with the 2000s. It's like I used to say how much I hated the 2000s, and fuck, I'm watching them all the time now. So
yeah, yeah,
just that element.
yeah. It's like fair game. I mean, I'm not gonna give it 5 stars, but that movie's funny, man. It's it has exactly all the same logic problems that you would expect in like something Vinegar Syndrome would put out. It's just an extremely poorly written script. And it's super funny to see a Baldwin in there, and it's based on a novel which is very suspicious, and I can almost hear the conversation with Cindy Crawford where they're like, "No, no, no, look, come do this movie. It's based on a novel. It's gonna really help your career." um, anyways, yeah, Fair Game is kind of fun. Um, all the Fast and the Furious movies, and then okay, do y'all remember when I was bragging on this movie called Sick of Myself? It came out like 2 years ago. Speaking of Vinegar Syndrome, they put it out on their as one of their sub labels.
I will be honest and say I do not remember.
It's okay.
Same.
It's a story about somebody who like wants to be internet famous and so starts taking a pill that she knows is going to give herself like an alien rash, and basically like documents it and pretends like she doesn't know what's going on. And it's just like this descent into like the destruction of her physical well-being in order to become internet famous and all the complications there. But it's done in like a very, very dark comedy way. It was a brilliant movie. Extremely unique comedy, very funny. I loved it. So when I heard that that director made a movie with Nick Cage called Dream Scenario, I was excited. Just didn't get a chance to watch it. Finally saw it pop up on a plane, and I was like, "Oh hell yeah!" Um, I don't know. I think Dream Scenario is okay. It had some ideas.
It feels half baked, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, like Cage is great in it, which isn't shocking, but like it doesn't. I don't know what it's really trying to say by the end. Like I felt really lost. I don't know if you felt the same way.
I think that's a pretty good way to say it. Like a lot of these kind of like do you know anything about this movie, Adam?
I do not.
So it's the basic premise is that out of nowhere, Nick Cage plays like essentially like a boring like suburban dad. He's a professor, kind of like a weak, kind of willed, just sort of kind of going along with the flow, but doesn't really cause any waves. Just kind of a boring guy.
Hmm.
And out of nowhere, he starts showing up in everybody's dreams, but like everybody.
Okay.
And most people obviously don't know him. So as word gets out as to who this guy is, he becomes famous,
Uh-huh.
and it's like relishing in the fame. And then there's some events that happen that cause him to introduce like shame in his life and sort of embarrassment. And all of a sudden, he starts like brutally murdering and like assaulting people in the dreams.
Okay.
And so now he's in everybody's dreams, and uh,
They're very upset at him basically for
yeah, and the
him
tide
killing them in their dreams.
exactly because he's giving everybody nightmares now. And the way that I don't want to obviously get into spoilers because it's not a podcast about that movie, but the to Zach's point, the way that the third act happens, it just feels like they had this awesome idea to put Nick Cage in everybody's dreams. Like that's like a one-liner that probably sold itself, with a producer. And it feels like they didn't know where to go. I think because I didn't feel like it paid off the way I wanted it to, or went the way it went in like an interesting way. Which is too bad because Sick of Myself is a fantastic debut, like extremely good. Some of the hardest I've laughed in a long time. So watch Sick of Myself. I think Dream Scenario can be skipped. Then the only other thing I'll talk about briefly is um, I want to talk about Deaf Crocodile in just a second too. So two things, I guess. But one is I just rewatched Conan the Barbarian, the beautiful 4K from Arrow.
Lucky, I still haven't gotten it.
You mean that hasn't come in the mail?
No, like I didn't get it immediately. So finding it was for a while was kind of tough. I don't even know if it's still available or not. I couldn't get it when I wanted it, so I haven't got it yet.
Oh, is it one of these things that's now kind of like out of print and hard to find?
It almost seems like I didn't look in to see if it was out of print. It almost seems like it sold more than they anticipated, and they did not have enough like stock.
Okay.
So I don't know if they're restocking. I haven't looked into it.
Yeah, it
But
still
yeah,
says sold out on Arrow's US site. Might be
really,
able to get it somewhere like was it Orbit Video or they
yeah.
or
Yeah, Dabbleek. Um,
yeah,
okay.
they believe, yeah. Yeah,
I
but
didn't
they're
realize.
definitely sold out on the Arrow website. At least the limited edition anyway. You know, the Arrow they always bring out standard editions down the line, but if you want the fancy one with the poster and shit, it's probably gone.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking too when I saw that. But yeah, continue, Chris. Sorry.
It's okay. It's shocking that Mondo Macabro has a better e-commerce experience than Arrow. Like their website is so bad. I don't get it.
That's the hut for you.
Yeah. No, no, even before the hut, they just never like they've always I think it's because they sell through distributors mostly. Like, you can go to like 8 different places online and buy Arrow for the same price. So I think that's probably why, but their website is just shockingly bad. Anyways, yeah, but Conan is awesome. It's so fun. Um, it's a I forgot how seriously it takes itself as like a sword and sandal movie. Like they're all in on the lore. Um, I
Have you
kind
ever
of
read the Conan books by any chance?
no.
They're good. They're good. They're yeah. So it's you can tell they had really gotten into the books when they started making the movie.
Okay, okay.
Yeah,
Like
it's
with
really
some
cool.
of the language and the names of the people and like all that.
Yeah,
Okay,
it really gets in depth into that stuff.
that's funny. Um, yeah. So quickly then on the collection side, just two quick things I want to call out. Shudder is now releasing physical media through Vinegar Syndrome, which I think is awesome.
I saw that. Yeah.
The first film I can't remember which one they put out, but they just put out This Sadness and it sold out in like an hour.
Yeah, I was really thankful. I did not like love that movie. It's
Oh,
good. It's pretty decent, but I was like, I'm fine.
okay, yeah. Because I was curious about it. I remember it caused quite a buzz when it came out. Um, so I'll be getting that in, I guess. But um, the other thing, people are complaining that it's interesting because when Vinegar Syndrome now is like going into stuff like Shutter or like IFC Films, there's Film Movement's another big one. Like they're definitely attracting new fans to their website,
Mm.
which is great for them. But it's funny because you're hearing the same complaints now from new people. So I was on Instagram and someone was like, "Can't believe they already sold out. I guess I'll go to eBay. Thanks eBay for supporting me." And I was like, "Man, this is the same problem. I just can't imagine being a company that's small like Vinegar Syndrome and trying to guess at how many copies to make. Because like if you guess wrong, you're just losing your shirt, right?
Yeah, it's like I got something in the dirt, which was a new Moorhead and Benson movie, I think last year. I got it because it sold out in 5 hours. And they only made I think they only did 1,000 copies. Like
Yeah,
that's
you just don't
insane.
know. Like, in retrospect, you're like they could have printed 3,000 maybe, but like how would you know, right?
Yeah.
Like I don't I can't imagine trying to do demand planning for a business that size. It's just like a total shot in the dark. Anyways, so that and then what was the other thing? Oh, just a very brief call out to Arrow for having an awesome slate. Their August slate is great. They've got the finally got the Mexico trilogy coming to 4K, which will be exciting.
Yeah, I'll probably be getting that as well.
Yeah.
The recent Arrow slate is so random. Like I still can't believe that though. Like the Clash of the Titans and Wrath of the Titans are getting like the 4K UHD limited edition treatment. Like for what are some like 2010s young adult films, it's kind of like if they released the Hunger Games movies. It's just so random that they're putting those out.
Yeah, and it
They
almost wonders, like, because they used to be, I guess, a nicer what Shout Factory is, your genre horror pictures and stuff. But it's almost like, are you guys just run out of rights? Like, I've been
Yeah,
releasing so
yeah.
long, you're just doing this now.
just picking up like Reese. I don't even know if these films are like like critically. Oh no, it's not. Wrath of the Titans got 27% on Rotten Tomatoes.
No, they're not
Uh,
critically acclaimed. No, no.
and Clash of the Titans is the same. Like they're not good movies. Why are they even put? Like, who's buying this? Who saw this and went, "Oh my god, my favorite movies, Clash of the Titans and Wrath of the Titans, are coming out on 4K UHD." I'm sure somebody did, but I saw that. I thought it was like I thought there was like older movies from like the 80s or something that they were releasing, and I was like, no, it's the 2010s movie.
No, they know what they're doing though because they use the old artwork and like they're saying artwork to be decided,
Yeah.
but the placeholder was the old artwork. So everybody got excited for the old movies,
Ah, okay.
and then they're like,
Sneaky,
"Wait, what?"
sneaky.
Yeah, I I
It's like
would.
Jaws: The Revenge just got a 4K steelbook. It's like I would have
Well,
never dreamed when they started putting 4K, I would be
well,
getting
look,
Jaws: The Revenge.
we've had this conversation so much that it's crazy in this day, and it says so much about the state of the business these days, where any shit movie gets like the full worked treatment, 4K UHD steelbook hard case, whatever. No matter how shit the movie is, you can bet that some company somewhere is going to put out a dope limited edition, and people are going to eat it up because it's a
Yeah.
dope limited edition.
Oh, speaking of limited editions, that was the other one I wanted to call out. So Deaf Crocodile subscription is live now.
Yep.
And those movies are not shit. I'm not trying to draw that comparison, but they do dope limited editions. I don't, I know this sounds cheesy to say, but like, I'm so proud of those guys. Like, I was just thinking about, when we had them on, it was like, granted, a seasoned industry veteran in Dennis Bartok, but like, they didn't, they were just breaking off from Arbalos and like, they didn't really know what they were doing. And now they have their own subscription and it's selling really well. And they have these like beautiful editions coming out that are shockingly expensive, but people want to support him. So I don't know. I'm proud of him. So just calling him out.
Yeah, and I mean, I finally broke my subscription cherry to get that, so it hurt my feelings. It was like you make that face when you hit the confirm button, and you're like, $500 just left my account, and that'd be for anything though. That would hurt my
Yeah.
feelings no matter what I do.
Yeah, for 12 movies, it's a lot, right? But they
Yeah,
they're digging into like their R&D team. I mean, I know it's just them, but like they're digging into like the depths of, very specific countries animation and like genre movies that would absolutely never see the light of day otherwise. So they have some cool research they're doing to get these movies out.
well, I think we've put it off long enough, guys. I think people
Yeah,
probably want to hear us talk about Fast and Furious.
it's vroom vroom movie time.
Yeah, yeah. So, well, are you guys ready to figure it out?
Sure. It's just funny. I mentioned this in our group chat, so I might as well say to the wider audience. It's just funny that it's Pride Month and we chose the most heterosexual movies to watch for all of Pride Month. These are the straightest movies possible. I don't think there's even a glimmer of homosexual subtext in these movies.
Yeah, it
Well,
doesn't even do like where people will be like Lord of the Rings, like, oh well, Sam and Frodo are definitely gay for each other.
yeah, exactly. I don't. There's like none of that here.
Like there
I
is
don't.
no Paul and Vin Diesel slash fiction going on.
I think the closest we get is at the party in the first Fast and Furious movie where there's two girls kissing for 2 seconds. That is the
Oh.
closest we are getting to Pride at this stage.
All right. Well, I guess we should move on to we'll go ahead and do Fast and Furious or the Fast and the Furious, because if I just call it Fast and Furious, that's going to be complicated
Confusing.
later.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for the first one, we're going in Los Angeles, a gang of bank robbers that call themselves the ex-presidents. Oh shit, that's the wrong one. Let me
I was
go.
gonna say I don't remember any. I don't remember them having a name. What?
No, that's just my joke that it's just Point Break.
Ah, shit. Okay, I've never seen Point Break. I know the comparison exists, but I've never seen Point Break.
You should watch Point Break and you'd be like, damn, I've already seen this movie. All right. So for the first one, Robert Cohen, 2001. I love the tagline is live life a quarter mile at a time. I'm so glad they loved that much. Dominic Toretto is a Los Angeles street racer suspected of masterminding a series of big rig hijackings. Wow, they really fucking spoiled that, didn't they? Jesus. That's like a mystery in the movie, technically. I mean,
No,
it's
he's
not really.
suspected. He's suspected though. That's why Paul Walker goes
Uh,
undercover
oh yeah,
because
then
he's
I
the
just spoiled it
suspect.
because I'm an asshole. So that's
You're
fine.
an asshole.
I
Spoil
just
it.
I just saw that part and I'm like, wait, okay. When undercover cop Brian O'Connor infiltrates Toretto's iconoclastic crew, he falls for Toretto's sister and must choose a side: the gang or the LAPD.
Such a
So
tough choice.
yeah, yeah. So I would love to know, Chris, because I mean, I obviously the series has went off the rails. So obviously, I think there's some popularity. So where is the first one?
Yeah. So it's in the 12,000s, 12, 7, 17. It's actually randomly, it's one above. This point of the list is so random. It's one above Cujo, the original Cujo,
That movie's boring as shit. So I'm surprised it's that high.
and it's two above Seijun Suzuki's Youth of the Beast. So those three movies are right next to each other.
They're the same movie essentially.
Nightmare blunt rotation.
That's funny. Yeah. So it's critically accepted that it exists. Um, yeah, we'll get into it here in just a second. I don't no idea how to process these first two, but um,
Well, I
yeah,
start by telling you the fun fact about the Fast and the Furious.
let's go, Adam. Why don't you start us off?
I'm so happy about this. Okay, so are you familiar that the Fast and the Furious is like there was an old film called The Fast and the Furious? Are you guys familiar with that?
Yeah,
I think it's
yeah.
from like the 50s. So it was produced by Roger Corman. He
R.I.P.
exactly R.I.P. He produced the original Fast and Furious movie. When the screenwriters were writing this script, they had a bunch of different titles that they didn't like, and they couldn't figure out a title that they wanted to use. And then they came across, the old Fast and the Furious movie, and they wanted to use that title because they thought it fit really well. So the producers of this film went to Roger Corman and asked, can we use the title? What do you think that Roger Corman asked for in agreement for this? This is the most Roger Corman shit possible.
Ooh.
What would Roger Corman want? Because it's
It
not going to
wasn't
be money.
wasn't money. Did not give a shit about money. Did not want money for this.
Oh God.
A writing credit?
Nope.
What was it?
He traded them for stock footage that they didn't use.
That
That is the
He's like, "I
most
can use
Roger
it."
Corman. Yeah, he just wanted to reuse it himself. That is the most Roger Corman shit ever. He
That's
just wanted their
awesome.
unused stock footage.
I love it. I
it.
love it so much. I want to know.
That
Do you know what? Did it ever show up in one of his movies?
I actually don't know. It when I was reading it, it just kind of ended there. He was just like, "Yeah, okay, we'll give you stock footage, sure."
Man, I'd love to know
Uh,
if it ended up in something. That'd be
Like
awesome.
I can just imagine just there's like a random shot of LA somewhere in like a Roger Corman movie that he produced after this, and it's just like that was from Fast and Furious.
Yeah, I
Uh,
just can imagine them having like a briefcase or a check ready. He's like, okay, how much do you think he might ask for about this much? Like, can I just have the stock footage? They're like, yeah, yeah, that's fine. They start like ripping up the check real quick. Like, yeah, you can have stock footage.
what a fucking legend, man! R.I.P. to Roger Corman. There is no other like him. Anyway, so back to the movie itself then. Fast and Furious. I was surprised how little I remembered from this movie. I realized when I was watching these
Thank
that I
you.
definitely remembered more about Too Fast, Too Furious. Just in terms of like just general plot. Like I forgot that there was even a crime element. I forgot like that Paul Walker was an undercover cop. I just thought this was about people driving cars fast. I forgot like most of the elements of this movie. I do think it's charming. The script is pretty like in terms of I say the script, the dialogue is terrible and it's delivered terribly. I cannot like there was so much of this movie where I was just cringing at the delivery of some of these lines.
Mhm.
It's really really bad, but there's a lot of stuff to like about it. Like it's cheesy, it's nonsense. The driving scenes are kind of cool. Like they don't hold up at all in terms of like knowing like this is such a like an old school thing when they hit the NOS. When they hit the NOS button,
Yeah.
like that just looks it looks so cheesy, but it just works in a way. Like it looks like they're like taking off, like like they're
Yeah.
going into light speed, like in Star Wars. It's so dumb, but it just kind of works in a way that's kind of charming. Like I didn't love this movie. I don't think it's high art or anything like that, but I did have a fun enough time watching it. And I actually think the main plot is actually, I know it's Point Break. I've never seen Point Break, so I can't really make that comparison. But I do actually think the main plot is good. It's just so loose in other aspects, especially with like some of the acting and the delivery and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think it's funny you mentioned that you couldn't remember anything. I was actually going to watch all of these like a couple years ago with Alicia, and so we watched the first one, and this was June of 2021 because I checked my letterbox. We went to watch it. I was like, I don't fucking remember a thing, and I just watched this 2 years ago. Like for some reason, it is just not a memorable in its plot. It's kind of memorable in a like I don't want to say a meme way because it's not that'd be like I liked it ironically. But yeah, like quarter mile at a time is one of the few things I remember just because Vin Diesel delivers that line so terribly. Like that whole scene is funny to me. But yeah, it's fun. It's a fun movie. I think so far of the three we've watched, it's my least favorite.
Yeah, I'd agree there. I think even though I did actually rate it higher than Too Fast, Too Furious, now that I'm thinking about it, I actually do. I would, if I was to sit down and watch any of them again, it would probably be Too Fast, Too Furious. But we'll obviously get there. Um,
The it's interesting because the first two movies have like real directors there. I mean, I guess it's debatable if Rob Cohen's a real director, but he started out his career pretty hot. He was a TV director, then he came out of the gates with that Dragon, the Bruce Lee story documentary, or not a documentary, but like a movie about Bruce Lee that did really well. Then he did Dragonheart, which is kind of a sneaky awesome movie. Um, and then Daylight with Stallone, and then I think that's it until oh no no no. Then he did The Skulls, which is random. Do you remember that the conspiracy theory movie?
Yeah, I probably have seen it, but I don't couldn't
is
tell you
that
anything about it.
is that Pacey from Dawson's Creek?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes, I can tell you
yeah,
that for sure.
it
Nice.
is. It's the one about secret societies on like Harvard or Yale or something. I don't know.
Oh, okay, yeah, yeah.
And then he did this. So, and then he went on to just have a really weird career. I don't think he's an extremely talented director. But
That's so harsh. He kicked off one of the biggest franchises of the last 20 years.
Yeah, he
no,
probably sits there and watches Fast X and is like, didn't this start about robbing portable DVD players?
no, that's the thing. It's not even his, right? It's this guy, what's this dude's name? Gary Scott Thompson or whatever, the writer.
The
This
writer, yeah, yeah.
this is all like his baby, right?
Yeah, and actually, David Ayer, weirdly enough, has a writer's credit on
Yeah.
this. The guy
Yeah,
who
I
did
noted that
Suicide
too.
Squad.
Yeah,
That's really
Yeah, I
yeah.
saw
weird.
that
Tra-
too.
Training Day. Yeah, we'll give him the nice credit.
Oh, I didn't realize he did train. Oh, he did do Training Day.
he
Okay.
he had a good writing career for a while.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. Um, I have no idea how to rank this. It's like it's not quite goofy enough for my brain to accept it as like um just a schlocky piece of shit that I love. Like it's not quite bad enough for that. Um, and it's certainly not like a real movie. It's kind of in this weird middle ground space that I guess like it's entertaining enough, it's fine. Um, I was trying to think of because I'm like 2 weeks behind, so I haven't got to my review yet. 2 weeks behind in terms of writing, so I'm trying to think of what I'm going to say about this when I write about it.
It
I
does take
honest-
itself a little bit too seriously, I think, is probably its main issue.
that's the thing, right? It's like they're trying to make something. I will say that apparently, if you were in drag racing culture in the early 2000s, this became like your Bible kind of thing. Like I think they nailed it from that perspective, from what I've heard.
Yeah, and there's like neat and I think they pushed this further in the second one, but like people's clothes like matching their cars and stuff like that. And I mean, they definitely use a lot of stereotype, and they do that probably worse than Too Fast, Too Furious, but it's done in more of a I don't know. I don't want to say loving way, but it doesn't seem like an offensive way, but it's definitely dated. It's interesting.
Yeah. It, I was trying to think if there's a comparison between Alien and Aliens and like, the first two Fast and the Furious movies. I don't think it really works, but the reason I was thinking that way is because this is a good example of, I think, how franchises go, right? They start off as like this small, sort of contained thing, and then they kind of build on the world and they, build the characters and stuff over time. I think it's a pretty good example of that because I can't imagine when they were sitting down to write this and make this movie, I can't imagine they thought there was going to be a franchise behind it.
They definitely didn't think they'd be playing Rocket League in the Vatican. So I mean, that's
Please tell me that happens at some
I
point.
guess we'll have to wait and find out.
God damn.
Wait, is that it's okay?
We'll have to wait and see. I'm not confirming or denying anything.
That's an
See, you
amazing.
could literally say anything is going to happen in like Fast and Furious 7, and I won't know to believe you or not.
Yeah, I know.
Um,
I feel the same way. Did they make it to space yet in the franchise?
I guess we'll find. Actually, I don't know that one. I don't know if we talked about which ones of these we had seen. So I guess as a quick note, I have seen the most random selection. I saw the first three, and then I saw five because Alicia really likes it, and then I've seen Fast X, and that is all I've seen from this franchise. I don't know if you guys are kind of in the same place.
Yeah.
I see. Yeah, I kind of grew up watching these, I guess, and then when I grew up, I stopped watching them because, of course, I did. So the last time I saw a Fast and Furious movie, apart from now, I'm just pulling up the exact year that it came out. 2006 was when Tokyo Drift came out. That was the last time I had seen a Fast and Furious movie. I saw Tokyo Drift on what would have been my quick maths, probably like my 12th or 13th, my 12th birthday. And then I never watched any of them ever again. As at that point, I was like, okay, I think I'm done with Fast and Furious.
And from my memory, you've hit peak. I'm going to be so disappointed because I've told people for years Tokyo Drift's my favorite, and I haven't seen it since probably I was 13 years old. I'm gonna be real disappointed if we get to. I'm like, man, this movie's garbage.
Everyone, it does seem to be that's like the cult one. That's like
Yeah.
everyone fucking loves Tokyo Drift. Like I have friends and like they're gonna be so stoked that we're gonna be talking about these movies because they like love the Fast and Furious movies. And if I mention any, it's always Tokyo Drift. Tokyo Drift, Tokyo Drift. Everyone's obsessed with Tokyo Drift. Maybe it's because it's like its own kind of little self-contained thing. You don't have the whole family bullshit going on. Maybe that's why people love it so much and it's just different. But yeah, again, I haven't seen it in fucking, I don't know, when was I 12? 17 years ago? So we'll
It's
find
the
out, I guess.
it's the Halloween 3 of the franchise.
Maybe it could be the
Yeah.
Halloween 3 of the franchise. Fuck yeah, I'll take that.
Since you brought up family, I did want to note of when cinema changed because of the first Fast and Furious movie. Do you know who says family for the first time in the Fast and Furious series?
No.
At 1 hour, 5 minutes, and 46 seconds, Ted Levine says the word family, and it's the first time it's said in the series.
Who the hell is Ted Levine?
He's the guy who did Buffalo Bill and Silence of the Lambs. He's in it as the cop.
Oh, I was trying to figure out who he was. Oh yeah, I know exactly who.
You should know his voice. Yeah, you probably know his voice.
I know exactly who it is now.
He's like,
That was
I guess
the day
his
cinema
handler.
changed.
Yeah, that right there. It's all downhill from here, guys.
Oh my gosh.
R.I.P. Cinema. We hardly knew you.
I had seen the first two, maybe like the first 10 minutes of Tokyo Drift, and I think tuned out. And then randomly on a plane, I don't know which one it was, but it was hilarious because they're like driving a helicopter and like driving cars onto like a moving train, or I don't know. Like it was all over the place. It was like a bunch of stuff on a bridge, a bunch of business on a bridge.
It's always on a bridge.
Sounds like a Fast and Furious movie to me.
Yeah. These kind of are following the same formula that Bond movies followed, right? Right. I mean, different movies.
Let him
But
finish.
Just in the sense, different movies. I'm not comparing them, but just in the sense of like, where do you take a series that's kind of just about one thing? So
Yeah.
right? So you end up doing like bigger explosions or different, like more interesting stunts, or like that's kind of the only place to go in this. So I am curious to see how this develops over time.
Like like you can make a similarity as well with like Mission Impossible. At the end of the day, it's
Yeah.
Ethan Hunt pulling off an impossible mission, and they just have to make it crazier and crazier and crazier every time. So it's kind of the same in that regard. Really, you start with this very sort of grounded story, pretty much of this, guys driving cars and stealing shit, and then obviously the stakes just have to get higher and higher and higher because if you go back. Now, maybe I'm wrong, but like if you go back now and just make like another Fast and Furious movie about some guys doing, street racing and stuff, people, some sections of the audience would probably be happy with that, but then others, like the general movie-going audience, would be like, "Where's the explosions?"
Yeah.
I
You
was
know?
telling Alicia this. I was like, I actually think I'm gonna miss it when all the street racing stuff's gone. Like, I think I'm gonna kind of miss it. Like, 'cause
Yeah.
I did think that stuff was cool. Like,
Like if you're like me, like I grew up playing like Need for Speed Underground on the
or
PlayStation.
or like Midnight Club. Midnight Club was mine.
Yeah, Midnight Club. Exactly. Yeah. So like if you played those like this is such a specific era. So even Chris, you might even be too like kind of late to this, but like it was such a specific era in like the early 2000s where everything kind of like this whole kind of souped up car culture
Yep.
in this regard. Like, you know, you had Pimp My Ride on TV, the
Yep.
Fast and Furious movies coming out. You had Need for Speed Underground, you had Midnight Club on PlayStation. There was such a condensed culture around this stuff.
Yeah.
And if you grew up kind of around it, it was such an iconic thing. So I'm kind of the same. Like I found it really like like even just like again, this is more about Too Fast, Too Furious, but like that silver and blue skyline that Paul Walker drives in Too Fast, Too Furious, that's just so iconic. Just I was actually surprised it didn't show up in this movie. I was like, where's the skyline? Because that's all I think about when I think about Fast and Furious. I think about the silver and blue skyline. Um, and so I was surprised that it wasn't in the first one. I was like, oh, okay. And then it showed up in Too Fast, Too Furious. And I thought that was really weird because it's such an iconic image to me. That really kind of sums up these movies in terms of how I remember them in that kind of era of early 2000s car culture. Which again, like I was like 8 years old. So it's not like I was out street racing myself. It's just one of those things where, you know, it's just kind of all around you. You know, you turn on MTV and Pimp My Ride is on. You play PlayStation and Need for Speed is like one of the best games available on PlayStation at that time. So it just becomes so part of the mainstream culture. Um, and it's just one of those things that just kind of disappeared. Again, maybe that's why they had to change direction after Tokyo Drift because people were like grew out of car culture in that respect. Um,
It's an interesting comment. We have to kind of watch it as the series goes because the other
yeah,
thing the series did well, just saying, I mean, this is basically saying the same thing you said, but like it appealed to like youth culture, right? Like if you were in your 20s in 2001, like you got behind this movie or your teens. And then everybody in the series just got old. So they had to like, you couldn't do it to the same way anymore.
Well, this is coming from my experience working with youth and stuff. One thing that is a little bit lost more now than it was like, you know, maybe when me and Adam were kind of their age and a little bit younger was there is not a much of sense of analog technology. Like cars are very analog in the way they work. Yeah, they all have computers now, but there was an interest there. There was a lot of interest in putting things together. It was like right before the digital movement from away from analog happened, and I think that was kind of a big interest point. Like a lot of those people my age became mechanics or something because that the cars interested them like that. So it's interesting to see like how they film, especially these first two. It's funny that I'm going to compare it to Saw, but there was a lot of like movies in the early 2000s where they would almost show you how things work. Like it's not realistic of like what they're showing you, but the idea was to like get you down into like the engine and show you like what's going off and stuff like that, and like quick editing that I don't know if this has as much interest if you were to like go back and do it now.
Oh, that's an interesting point, actually. Um, I haven't really thought about I haven't really thought about it from that angle, but that's a super interesting point. Like, if you're 12 today in 2024, like, do you even care about the fact that the NOS is like going through these pipes and the engines, like everything in that's like just kind of like you said, analog that you can build with your hands. Like that whole world is so it feels so distant and like archaic almost now, right?
Yeah, and I mean, like I said, I mean, it's not like cars aren't analog now, but they definitely have, there's a lot of control through the computer. It's hard to get like a 13-year-old underneath a hood to figure out how to build cars. Like, that
Oh,
was an
they're
interest
not.
point for a lot of people.
Yeah, there's not much that's analog left now. Like I remember there's a dealership here that has like a service it has 10 like service bays and they had to start paying their techs $60 an hour, if you can imagine that, because first of all they couldn't find techs, but second of all they had to train them up to become basically like IT professionals now to work on these cars.
Yeah, and
Uh,
it's there's a whole idea that the generalist as an employee is kind of dead. People who just kind of know how to do a little bit of everything.
Right.
You have to be specialized is a big part now. It's almost like being a Volvo mechanic 30 years ago. You had to be specialized in Volvo if you wanted to work on it. Where that's become the main thing is you work on certain things and that's it.
Hmm. There was the first few movies so far have had that like, mechanic sort of brainiac kid. They can is like a idiot or not an idiot savant, but like a savant, and it just knows everything about an engine and can break it apart and can tell what's going on immediately, and probably could get into Harvard, but just like life hasn't gone their way, right?
Yeah, it's the only thing they're interested in. I mean,
Yeah.
there's ways they do that today, but it's definitely portrayed, I want to say, differently than it was then. Where this is like, yeah, the kid's just lazy, but he likes what he likes, sort of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think I think it's interesting to go back because these are very time capsule type movies. Which is
Huge.
funny because in our next episode we'll be going over how, from my understanding, how terrible the timeline gets. So that'll be fun. That'll really be interesting to see because we're gonna have to do some finagling of how the tech works.
Um, I have one question about the first movie, but I don't know if there's any other general thoughts that y'all want to share before we start getting into like specifics.
No, go ahead.
I I hate to even get like too critical over these. I mean, these are just popcorn movies through and through, right? You're just meant to turn them on, sit down, like have a good time. So I hate to like, it's not like we're talking about a Melville film here, but I'm just curious. The central premise of this movie is that there's like a crime family, right? That the police are trying to like break into and trying to take down, right? And that Vin Diesel plays like this sort of Godfather type figure for this crime ring, right? Um, and they ask the audience from early on to just kind of go along with the fact that they're like good guys even though they're criminals, right? Um, I'm just curious, like, is there like how I know there's a long history of this in movies, so they're certainly not doing anything unique with that. But I do think it's interesting on some level to just like, I don't know, talk about it for a second. Like, we are rooting for the criminals here from the beginning, right? There's no like doubt or there's no hint that you want the cops to win here, right? I mean, this is a movie celebrating crime, basically, right?
Yeah, we were
Mhm.
going to get into this. I'm glad you brought it up because I do think it's like a failure of the writing in parts, but I'll get to that after you've finished yours.
No, that's it. I mean, I just think I don't really even know exactly where I come down on it. I think it's just interesting. They kind of get a free pass because it's like, popcorn flick. But I do think it's interesting that this is like a full-on, no holds barred, like celebration of crime.
So I
Yeah.
think,
Oh, you
sorry,
go
you go
ahead.
ahead.
No, you go ahead, and you go ahead.
Mine's super quick. It's just what they do something clever in the writing in that they do actually make these guys a middle ground. Because yes, you have the police, then you have the Toretto's group, but then you also have that Asian group who seem to be bigger bastards. So they're almost really like the villains. So yes, you're right. We're like the main characters we are following are criminals, but the screenwriters also insert a kind of worse version of the same criminals to make you root against them and make them the bad guys rather than like the police are not necessarily the bad guys in this movie. I don't think there's any, at least for me anyway, I wasn't like rooting for Toretto against the police.
No, not
It was
bad.
more Toretto against the, that other sort of crime group that were on the motorcycles. So um, I agree in terms of like, yeah, we are essentially celebrating crime, rooting for criminals, et cetera, et cetera. But I think that they are positioned more sort of as kind of like, I guess anti-hero is kind of the best word I can use. Like they're not necessarily hurting people in what they're doing. They're stealing, from corporations and stuff like that. Um, the screenwriters insert a kind of worse version of the same criminal who also steal, but they also beat the shit out of people and murder people and stuff like that. So they kind of make them the kind of moral middle ground between the police and like the worst version of the criminals, if that makes sense. That's how it's more palatable for me anyway.
Yeah, and I think they do that. I think where it kind of, because everything while I'm watching it, I'm like, yeah, I accept this. This is fine. It's just when you start like breaking it down, and like you're right, it's like stealing from corporations, but you also have a bunch of truck drivers who are obviously frightened enough to start carrying shotguns and things like that. So it's like they don't really go into if they're getting hurt or not, but it's like, I don't know, something's scaring them enough, like when people start carrying shotguns. And to go for that, I think really where it fails for me is just more of like Paul Walker as a character. Like his character of Brian is, what interests him, I guess, like what's his motivation? Like it's like he likes Dom and that's cool, I guess, but it's like, man, that's a whole thing to throw your life away for this cult dude. And that's what I go with, is it's just a cult and he's just brainwashed. And it makes it more palatable.
Okay, let me think about that. Because they don't write Brian as straight-laced from the beginning though, right? He's an undercover cop, but doesn't he have a criminal record?
I mean,
Yeah,
that's not uncommon with undercover cops necessarily either.
Okay.
Because
Yeah, I mean,
it makes it like if they do a background check on you, they can see you've done some type of time. It's kind of like that part in The Departed where they're talking to Leo's character and they're like, we're not going to officially put you in as a cop. You're going to do some time for a petty crime and you'll never actually have a record of you. That's a
that
little bit
sounds,
more how those things kind of go.
that sounds so much like Infernal Affairs.
Never heard of it.
Um, okay. Yeah, I mean, look, I feel like a wet blanket even bringing it up. Like, I get it. Crime is fun in a movie. Like, but is The Godfather like the second highest rated movie of all time or whatever, right? Top 10 anyways. Like, people love criminal families. There's always been an infatuation with them. Um, just think it's interesting. It's like I guess it's because you can kind of escape into this fantasy when you sit down to watch a movie. You don't have to be tied to like the crimes, right? Or like you don't have to be connected to the murders that are happening. I mean, I guess talking about The Godfather now, like you don't sit there like you're not cheering on the murder of like small business owners that can't pay their loan. That's not why you're watching the movie. It's just kind of part of that world that you get caught up in. Um, I don't know. It's just an interesting point more than anything. I'm not saying they should have done anything different with it, but I did realize I was like, man, this is like they're not even trying to hide the fact that we're just like supporting criminals because they like have a stronger definition of family than the cops do, or whatever. They have a good barbecue. It's all about getting that plate.
Yeah, and it's I don't know, it is interesting going into like the different like crime elements of it. Like I did think it was funny to see, I can't remember his name. I was actually trying to look it up, but the guy who plays Hector, he plays Hector, the guy named Hector, a lot in movies, which I always think is funny every time I see it. Um so it's cool seeing like those actors where I'm just like, yeah, I've seen them in tons of stuff. It's like the most minor roles ever. And I'm like, that's what I think, that's what I'd want to be if I was an actor. You
Oh,
know,
character actor?
what's that?
Character actor?
Well, not even I don't even know if you can count them as like a character actor. It's just like they're so minor in like everything they do, but
Oh,
they do well enough to like keep landing roles, but they never have to do more than like probably a week's worth of work ever.
a caricature actor.
I mean,
Ca-
I guess to a point. I guess when I think of like a character actor, I'm thinking of like someone who they show up as like at least some type of like supporting or at least major villain role, and you may not know their name, but you know them like that well enough. Like,
Sorry, maybe you misheard me. I said caricature. So
oh,
like not a
caricature. Ah,
a
yes, I did.
caricature actor.
Yes,
So
actually, I like that. I like that. I like
yeah,
that.
because he's just paying like a generic like Mexican guy.
Yeah,
So
and he always plays Hector in movies.
yeah, so yeah.
whoa, he's been in 210 movies as an actor.
Yeah,
And
look
how
how many
many
of
are
them he's
called
played
Hector?
named Hector. Yeah, look, it's ridiculous.
It,
Or Mexican Thug. I think that's another one he gets a lot.
Hector Diaz, Hector. Yeah. Wow. Oh, here's the movie he plays Big Homie.
I think he's in like Dark Knight Rises as well. So I mean, like obviously these type of guys get like big roles too to play these like really minor characters. So I'm sure they do pretty well for themselves.
Yeah, Hector. That's just hilarious. You're right. He's Hector in so many movies. I guess though, as long as he's on Union scale, he's doing pretty well if he's in 200 movies, right?
Yeah. And like I said, I mean, I'm sure he's probably paid a major actor in maybe some smaller movie. I don't know. I don't know his whole career. I'm not gonna pretend to, but like I'm sure a lot of times he's there for 3 or 4 days and then he's out.
Yeah. Yeah. Juan is also a big one. We'll do a deep dive into the career of Noel Guglielmi.
That's gonna be our next project. We're gonna watch every movie with him in it.
Wait, yeah, exactly. Guglielmi is not even wait, is he Italian?
That would go.
Yeah, it does seem like he's Italian. Yeah,
Who ends up playing?
Guglielmi is definitely an Italian name.
He's like Peter Stormare, who always ends up playing a Russian.
Yes.
Oh, I gotta love Hollywood.
The dude was
Close
in
enough.
Fred 2, Night of the Living Fred. Wow.
I don't know. I mean, what do you say about these movies, right? I mean, I like I don't after we finish these films, I bought this set. I found all 10 movies for like $45 or something on sale at Amazon. Um, uh, I'll probably get rid of it. I don't think I'm gonna watch these movies a lot.
That's
They're
crazy
fun.
to say when you watch 2. You
Yeah,
know?
like you at least got to see when it gets off because so, like one of your complaints is, and which I agree with, it almost takes itself too seriously. But that is
Mhm.
not going to be an issue probably like 4 movies from now.
I can't wait till the 3rd episode when Chris is actively defending the Fast and Furious series as being like the highest form of camp. I look forward to that.
I don't know. Okay, this is there's a t I totally understand why you would say that, by the way. But have you all ever seen that movie Black Adam that came out with
Yeah, I hate that movie. Yeah, it's terrible.
I
It
refuse
is
to watch movies with The Rock that I don't contractually have to watch for this podcast.
oh, that's amazing. I can't wait till if we get GT on the episode. I can't wait. Um, I hated Black Adam so much.
So bad.
It's so bad, and the ego of The Rock in that movie is just something I've never seen before. Like, it's shocking how sensitive he is, and like like thin skin he has, and what a giant ego that man has.
Well, I mean, and that's one of the things we'll probably end up talking about once he comes into the series is him and Vin Diesel, who both have that problem, are going to be
Yeah.
on the same fucking sets. Like, this is why this is going to turn into a disaster.
And I felt a very similar vibe. Whatever movie I saw, it's somewhere between probably 9 or 10, I'm guessing. And it was just like a series of close-ups into like a de-aged Vin Diesel's face, talking about him as like family and like how wholesome he is and how much he would do for his family and like just caring for like the kids in the community. I was like, okay, buddy, like let's calm it down a little bit. Like, yeah, these just become these like vanity projects, I guess, but not in the fun way where something like Champagne and Bullets, where it's just batshit crazy. They're like legitimate vanity projects in the sense of just stroking this like hyper masculine kind of sensitive ego. So so far I'm not a fan of as the series goes on, but we'll see. Maybe Fate of the Furious will be my favorite one, and I'll be comparing it to Hateful Eight from Tarantino.
I guess since we just got done talking about Vin Diesel, maybe it's time to talk about the movie he does not appear in this series.
Let's do it.
All right. Adam, any last thoughts before we move on to Too Fast, Too Furious?
No, let's get to fucking Too Fast, Too Furious.
Let's get to the good one, please. I actually got to pull it up. Unless somebody else already has it up.
I have it up here. I can
Yeah,
read
you
it
go
if
for
want. It's a major double cross when former police officer Brian O'Connor teams up with his ex-con buddy Roman Pierce to transport a shipment of dirty money for shady Miami-based import-export dealer Carter Verone. But the guys are actually working with undercover agent Monica Fuentes to bring Verone down. There you go.
Is this higher? Is this higher, Chris? It needs to be.
Yeah, I think it should be. I actually regret my star ratings on both of these movies.
So I'm very sad to say
Oh no.
this was made by a real. This is probably the most like real director in the whole franchise, right?
James Wan does come in at some point.
Yeah, but like of all the people that could possibly win an Oscar for best director in their career, it's gonna be John Singleton, right? Like,
Like, what does John Singleton have that many? Like, I know he did Boys in the Hood, but like, what else does John Singleton have?
Four Brothers. Look for a Tyrese Gibson movie. He
Okay,
probably directed it
hold on,
I
because
don't.
he's the only
guys.
person who gave Tyrese Gibson a career.
True. Baby Boy is awesome. Try to
Baby
find
Boy.
Baby Boy at some point. It's really good.
Okay.
But
Oh, he
like
did Poetic Justice with Tupac. Okay. Oh, and he
he
did that
just
terrible Taylor Lautner abduction movie. Okay, interesting.
but he's just
Four
like a
Brothers is good though. You should watch that one as well.
yeah, he's like a real director, right? Like he hasn't gotten a lot of chances. I don't know the whole story about John Singleton, but he's like, he makes like artful movies about things that he knows, right? And this movie it kind of plays to me like a real movie. I don't want to get my thoughts yet, but it's not at all on They Shoot Pictures on any level.
I think that's insane.
I
I
agree.
know this was like a really like I've noticed there's a divide. Like when I've started looking, people are really either a big fan of this movie or it's weirdly divisive. And maybe we'll talk about it. I don't really know why it's divisive. Maybe it's just because Vin Diesel isn't in it, but I don't know. It's odd when I go like look at people's reviews for it.
I've been thinking about this movie since I watched it, and I was trying to put my pin into like what it reminded me of, and I think I figured it out. So this is like Miami Vice, but on fucking crack.
Yeah.
Yes, it is. It's got that Miami thing
It's
going
even in
down.
Miami. Yeah, it's in Miami. It has the white guy and the black guy combo. It's is literally Miami Vice, the Michael Mann movie, but like if they took like a ton of blow before they wrote it.
And one of the things that like made me like it more is I actually think Paul Walker was having fun. Like I
Yeah.
don't know, he seemed much more charming in this one. Him and Tyrese Gibson just I feel like had better chemistry. Like through the whole thing, I was much more interested in his conversations with Tyrese than I ever was with fucking Vin Diesel.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, Tyrese Gibson does a good job in this. It,
Yeah.
maybe there's no franchise with just the two of them, but you could almost see this becoming a break-off TV show, to your point about Miami Vice, right?
Yeah, like it almost feels like I don't know. Like this is a weird experimental one, probably in the series, right? Because this is the one where they're like, okay, what is this series really about? Is it about the Toretto family, which it seemed like that's not what their intention was, or is it more about Brian as an undercover cop in street racing? And they're going to come away with neither of those answers when we get to the third one, from the sound of it. But it's kind of I guess this is kind of a thing you see in a lot of like sequels to these big movies. Like they're like, okay, what is this series exactly? And I feel like this is what this one's trying to find, like what this series even is.
Yeah, it seems like they really wanted to lean into like it's like they didn't really care too much about the cast because I'm pretty sure the only reason Vin Diesel wasn't in this is just because he was unavailable.
Oh,
I
I
don't
will
think it
give
was.
you the quote. I have to give you this quote.
Oh,
He
please
read
do.
the script
Okay.
and he was interested in it. He did end up doing Triple X, but I think they were going to be willing to wait for him if
Okay.
they needed to. He wasn't interested in the script because he said it was just like one of those 80s sequels where it's only a sequel in name only, and it's not, they didn't take it from something like Coppola.
Okay.
He's really comparing this to The Godfather Part 2. That's what he
Okay.
wanted.
Understandable. They both follow crime families, so I
Yeah,
guess
yeah, same movies, essentially.
see
This is
where
The
he's coming from.
Godfather Part 2 of Fast and Furious.
But it's like they just basically took like what people kind of liked in the first one, fast cars and crimey hijinks, and just kind of cranked everything up to the max. So I think the racing stuff in this film is top notch. I think just this sort of chase scenes and everything like that, or when they're on, that scene when the whole kind of last half an hour of the movie really, where they're sort of driving around trying to get to
Yeah.
the bad guy before he escapes and whatever. It's pretty cool. A lot of the way it's filmed and stuff it is quite exciting. I do think it does the car stuff a lot better than the first film. So it is certainly Too Fast and Too Furious if we're sort of looking at it from that perspective. obviously it has a very, very similar plot in terms of Paul Walker having to go undercover to take down a crime boss. Slightly different dynamic in that he seems to be working with the police a lot more, and it seems there's no kind of middle ground characters, I guess. I suppose Tyrese Gibson's character, maybe to a lesser extent, is kind of a middle ground character, but in this one, it is very much cops versus bad guy. Like there's no Paul Walker riding off to the sunset with a with a criminal. It is very much cops versus bad guy. So it's kind of made it a little bit easier in that regard in terms of knowing who to side with and who to root for and stuff like that. So
But it feels more focused in that way too, I think.
yeah, I think so. I think so as well.
Yeah, I agree.
And I just think it's just a lot more fun. Like I said, like we said before, the first film did take itself seriously. It was trying to be, a serious kind of action crime film, whereas Too Fast, Too Furious was like, fuck it, let's go crazy. And there's some really good scenes. I mentioned this in our group chat, but like, there's literally a scene in this movie that has lived rent free in my head for 20 years. It's a scene where they're torturing the guy who always plays a crooked cop. I can't remember the actor's name.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about. He's in Batman Begins.
Max-
So
Exactly.
we're getting a lot of Nolan references here.
Mark Boone
Yeah.
Jr.
That's him. Yeah. And where they're torturing him with the rat under the bucket. I've remembered that scene for 20 years. That has been in my head. So like there's some cool scenes. There's some memorable moments. Like I said, the Nissan Skyline, the blue and silver Skyline, that has been in my head for 20 years. The scene with the rat been in my head for 20 years. There's a lot of really memorable imagery and scenes in this.
Yeah. I think for me, the scene where I was like, it kind of grabbed my interest because I was like, okay, this is probably going to be like a worse version of the first, because that's all I'd really ever heard about Too Fast, and I didn't remember it. I didn't remember anything but the yacht part from my childhood. But the part at the beginning where they're like racing and they're doing the whole NOS thing, and he jumps the car over the bridge,
Yeah.
I was completely sold. I was like, I'm sold with whatever we do now, because that's
Yeah.
I mean, that's way cooler than anything they did in the first one.
That is awesome. The only thing I'll say, and now we're talking about the yacht, I do think the film is actually a little bit anticlimactic.
Yeah, it's almost like they I think they felt almost desperate to make sure it ended with like a car thing, but they didn't really know how to do that. Like that's how it kind of felt to me.
Well, again, it is kind of a reference to that first scene where he jumps the car, on
Yeah.
the bridge. It's a callback to that, really. But then it just kind of ends. Like you'd think maybe there might be a shootout or something on the boat, but just like nah.
Car beat yacht.
Eva Mendes suddenly is free of all the goons who dragged her under the boat 2 minutes earlier.
That's true.
So it is a little bit anticlimactic in that regard. That's the only real negative thing I have to say about it, though. Is that the ending is a bit kind of anticlimactic. It just kind of ends.
Yeah, and I think a lot, even the people who return, which I know is Paul Walker and it's the FBI guy. I even think the FBI guy is just more interesting. I think he's funnier in it, and I'm like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, he's like a real character.
He definitely is. What's the actor's name again?
You're talking about Tom Berry, the guy who plays Bilkins, like kind of like the like older
Here-
black guy.
Yes, he reminds me a lot of the guy from Die Hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know it's not him, but it reminds me of him, and just in terms of like his vibe he gives during this movie. Yeah, that's exactly Tom Barry. Yeah, I like him in this too. I think the sort of wider cast is a little bit better. I think in general, like Cole Hauser's good. Even
Who
though
I
he's
did
like,
not know was Rip in Yellowstone. My Alicia looked
Okay.
it up after we watched it. I was like, that dude looks nothing like him now. He's like
Yeah,
a big
yeah.
buff Southern dude now. I was like,
Exactly.
like-
But that's because he is. That's the thing.
Oh,
Like,
really?
yeah, he's not like a Cuban guy at all. He was born in California. Because I remember I looked it up afterwards. But James Remar is in it, Dexter's dad.
Yeah,
he's
I
always-
noticed him. I was like, he didn't leave Miami, I guess.
Yeah, he's good. I like Ludacris.
Yeah,
I think Ludacris is fun.
And there's that girl. She didn't play in much, but she was popular during this era. The
Devin
one who
Aoki.
plays. I can't,
Devin Aoki. She's
Yeah.
Steve Aoki's sister, the DJ.
oh, okay. Because yeah, I was sitting there the whole time watching it, and I think like halfway through, I was like, "Fuck, it's Sin City." That's where I know her from. Because
Yeah,
I was sitting there
exactly.
like trying my hardest to remember where I knew her from.
Yeah, she's in Sin City. You're right.
No, she's the daughter of. I just remember this from when she was famous. A random fact about Devin Aoki. She's the daughter of the Benihana restaurant family.
Oh, okay, so
Oh,
that's where
okay.
Steve Aoki gets his money from too. Interesting.
Yeah, it was a very wealthy family.
Ah,
I
interesting.
think I think there's something else they're involved in too, but I just remember that one. It's got that was kind of funny. But she's a horrible actor. Like, let's be honest. She's horrible in this, but her character can kind of get away with it. It's that cheesy like girl power thing. That I mean, I don't girl power is not cheesy, but they make it seem almost like a Powerpuff Girls kind of thing or whatever.
Did you
Um,
guys see Prison Break back in the day?
No.
no.
Damn, I was like the Mexican guy in it. All I could think of was Sucre. He's like one of the main characters of it. I was like, oh, he did stuff before Prison Break. That's good for him. Good for him.
I want to
One
double click
thing,
on. Oh, good.
just one while we're talking about the cast, one thing that breaks do you want me to break the reality of this movie?
Please do.
No.
Please do.
Ludacris is obviously in this movie, but Ludacris also has a song that plays in this movie. So, like, in this universe, does Ludacris exist and he just looks like this character?
That's ludicrous, to
Or
be honest.
is it Ludacris undercover, you know, doing car races and shit?
Honestly, they really need to explore that because I think Ludacris is in more of this series.
He is.
Yeah, so it's like we need to explore that. We need to figure that out.
Yeah.
There's because these characters are written as cliche and like not given a ton of backstory. I mean, after the main like two characters, three characters, nobody else really has a backstory. You could pretty much fill it in with anything, right? Um, I actually think so. Ludacris to me is like the heart of this movie because I think I like him a lot in this because I think he's so playful and like his energy's so fun and relaxed. Like that scene where they go meet him and he's racing speedboats or like ski jets or whatever.
Yeah. Jet skis. Yeah.
Jet skis, thank you. Um, he just like he's got such a calm, like fun vibe that I think kind of sets the tone. Like I think he's the perfect tone setter for the whole movie. Um, no one's stressed in this movie. Everyone's like just having a good time,
It's very
you know?
Miami.
Yeah.
It fits like the aesthetic of Miami. Kind of you feel it all the way through. To be honest, I think that's one of the things I like about it. I just
Yeah.
think it's a more interesting setting than LA, just in general.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I don't know enough about that generally, but like between the two movies, this movie's been, I think, more fun for sure. Um, I was trying to think of like, because isn't Ambulance in LA?
Yeah, it is. It's not like LA is completely boring, but I mean, as far as like personality goes, I think Miami just has a lot more personality to me.
Yeah.
I think they're like I think you can like say the word Miami and there's like a certain picture in your head. Whereas you say LA, people just think of the Hollywood sign. Like
That's
that's
a
what I
good
know
point
about LA.
though. LA is kind of like this weird place where everybody comes in and sort of rents there. Nobody buys in LA. Everybody just kind of rents there, right? So it's got this weird like transient quality to it. But Miami has sort of always been Miami. It's like this kind of melting pot of like so many different cultures. It's interesting. Maybe I don't know. I don't know. I kind of see what you're saying, I guess. Anything that's about LA is always depressing. I'm thinking of like what's that Nick Cage movie, Leaving Las Vegas?
Mhm.
Isn't that the beginning of that is in LA or something? But
Oh, it's been a while, but I think so. I was like, well, that one takes place in Vegas, but I see what you're saying.
maybe well it's literally called Vegas. Yeah, maybe it's there, but I don't know. Anyways, yeah,
But the part where Paul Walker drove backwards and flipped off Tyrese Gibson was awesome. So I'm just gonna throw that out there. That was like one of the better chases in the movie. Because
yeah,
that's low stakes. It's kind of like what you're talking about. It's a very low stakes feeling thing.
exactly. But there's another thing this movie does, which I guess is important for the rest of the franchise, is it kind of like it sets they start to get into like nearly impossible stunts here, right? Like not quite impossible, but they're starting to go down that path of like, suspending belief kind of stunts.
Yeah,
There's a
like even that one where they jump over the bridge, that's fucking your axle. You're not driving. It's cool, and I'm glad it exists, but that car is not surviving.
right, right, right.
That.
So yeah, like that's going to be important, I think, as the franchise goes on, from what I understand it. I think there's some point where nothing they do is actually possible.
I did want to talk about one scene because it honestly shocked me when they did it. Adam, you were talking about the rat one, but I think set that up well. was that part where they are in that race to like get that cigar or whatever, and the guy like gets wrecked in between the two tractor trailers, and I was like, oh, he's just out of it, and then he goes underneath the wheel. I was like, Jesus Christ. It's like, that is so dark and nobody notes it. I was like, that dude just went under the wheels. He's dead.
It's true. Yeah, he gets squished by the back wheels. You're right.
I
Yeah,
was
that
like,
guy's dead.
man, that is kind of like, that's something you don't see in a lot of like PG-13 like movies anymore, where they do it to that degree. Like, yeah, people die, but it's almost like, what do they call that? Lucidence, dissonance, or whatever it is, where you always kind of feel a little separated from it. Seeing that dude go into the wheel, I was like, Jesus, that's intense. That's kind of intense for PG-13 nowadays. Maybe not as much in 2000. Was this 3, 2, something like that?
That's a good point, actually. Yeah, there's no doubt that that dude's dead.
Well, is there anything else? Too Fast, Too Furious?
No, I think, I think, I think going forward, I think we're probably going to need to expect more of this vibe than the first film. I think we're all going to have to be prepared to suspend our belief and just kind of enjoy the ride.
Well,
Yeah,
we
because
get
I think we're going to see an interesting like. I'm really more fascinated with the evolution we're going to get here. If it's like
yeah,
steady, or if it just takes like like such an increased peak at some point, and
yeah.
it just levels off. I'm really curious how that's going to go, because I feel like we're on a steady incline right now.
Well,
Yeah.
we're about to get into the Justin Liniverse, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Because he's a huge part of this franchise going forward.
Yeah, he does. I think he definitely is he directs more than anyone else. I think he is the only director who's ever returned until this next part of them, where he got replaced for 10. So he was supposed to do 10, 11. He was supposed to be basically all three parts of 10. And we'll get into that when we get into that. But apparently it didn't go very well.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
No, but I mean, maybe that's a good segue into Justin Lin. I don't have it. Of the two so far, Too Fast, Too Furious is number one for me. I would most likely rewatch this one again.
I'm really glad I wasn't in the minority, because I kept like, after I watched it, I was like, man, that was like decently much better for me. And then I started like reading reviews, and like, I know I follow a few people who are like big Fast and Furious people. I look at their ranking and it was like near the bottom. I'm like, really? I feel like this is way better.
Yeah, I think it's a better movie.
Yeah, like I was kind of coming up to it because I was reading reviews as well, but I was reading reviews from like people that I follow, which are normally like, in the circles that we normally run in, like Criterion and art films and stuff like that. And there's this one letterbox user that I always read his reviews whenever I see them, because he writes just like really eloquently. Like, he just writes these really cool reviews that are usually very poetic and stuff. And he like wrote like the most poetic shit about Fast and Furious 2, or Too Fast, Too Furious.
Can you
And
send
gave
that
it
to
like
me? I
four
would love to read
stars, and
that.
I was like, that's a dope review of this movie. Yeah, like it honestly, like half it makes no sense to me. It's one of these reviews. But I'll just get the link for you here, and I'll just send it. I'll just ping it over to you in Discord now at the moment.
Yeah, that's great. I love reading stuff like that, when I watch like this like really what seems like a dumb feeling movie, and then there is somebody who has like, they feel like they've opened up something and saw something that no one else can, and I think that's awesome.
Oh yeah, that review definitely. The review I just sent there definitely does that. Like, I was reading this going like, what? But like, what? Like, in a good way. So yeah, I thought it's a cooler little review. So have a read of it when you get a chance. But yeah, anyway, Justin Liniverse. I have it up here in front of me if you want me to go over the details.
No, I guess we can go back and forth. I got it. I actually remembered to get it up this time. So
Cool.
for
Fire away.
anyone who's unaware, who's just sitting there saying this does not have Fast and Furious in the title, we're going to be talking about Better Luck Tomorrow, which is directed by Justin Lin. We were just talking about him. He'll be taking over the series from here. The reason this movie is retroactively in the Fast and Furious movie is because one of the characters in this movie will appear in most of the films going forward. So Better Luck Tomorrow, a group of overachieving Asian American high school seniors enjoy a power trip when they dip into extracurricular criminal activities. So we will not be doing much with some fast cars and some freedom. We do see one from time to time, but where are we at, Chris? Where's this one located at? Because I think Ebert was a huge fan of this movie, so I think it had some critical success.
Yeah. You know, surprisingly enough, this one's ranked below the original The Fast and the Furious movie,
Interesting.
which I don't see any world where that's possible unless it's just not that well known, which certainly could be possible.
I was gonna say it's probably down. Like I'd never heard of this movie before you guys told me to watch it,
Yeah.
so I think it could be down to the fact that maybe a lot of critics haven't seen it as much as the first Fast and Furious one.
I know
And
Ebert has like a famous, you can actually find the clip on YouTube where somebody is yelling about the Asian American representation, like during a festival. And Ebert, like, basically claps back about, like, he's Asian American. He doesn't owe you a certain representation. Um,
okay,
so he
interesting.
was a huge fan of like this movie when it was shown. And I don't know when or if it ever got a wide. Honestly, it being attached to Fast and Furious has probably weirdly helped it in a way to it, because I mean we wouldn't talk about it if it didn't have any connection.
That's right. Did you say that Roger Ebert said that he was Asian American?
No, he's saying that Justin Lin does not owe anybody any
Oh,
representation.
okay.
Yeah, no, no, no. Ebert did not claim that, as far as I'm aware.
Yeah, for some reason, this is not ranked high. It's ranked right below the Captain Underpants movie
Okay,
at
so random.
17,844. It
17,000. Wow.
yeah, it needs to be reprised. This is much, much, much better than anything in the Fast and the Furious universe.
For now, we haven't got too
I was
far
gonna
yet, Chris.
say, yeah,
We haven't got far
we've
yet, Chris.
watched two films. Come on, bro, reel it in.
We have not got to see Fast Five yet. So, um, yeah. So, Adam, what did you think? Because I know this was your first time.
Yeah, I liked it for the most part. Stylistically, obviously, it's a complete, departure of what we've been talking about before so far. It really reminded me kind of like, Richard Linklater or Gus Van Sant, those kind of like just kind of down on the ground shooting real stuff. Reminded me a lot of their films. And I liked it. I did think it's a little bit too long. I do like there's a lot of in the middle where fat could have been trimmed.
I
So
100% agree to that.
I don't think it's a perfect movie or anything. I assume this was his first movie. Would I be right in
I
saying
believe
this is?
so. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, like and look, I get it. That's fair. It's your first film, and that's fine. Nobody's perfect. Not everyone's Orson Welles, unfortunately, when it comes to first movies. But I liked it. It's interesting. It has some cool themes. The plot itself is it's just interesting to see how it goes from A to B. I wasn't sure where it was going. The ending was quite shocking to me. Um, I know I wasn't kind of sure where we were going to get to, because obviously, it's one of these films where it starts at the end and then it goes back to kind of show what happened.
Right.
And I wasn't sure how they were going to get from, A to B. And I was reading that this is actually based on a real story partially. It was inspired by a real murder that happened in similar circumstances. Um, but yeah, I like the film. It's so hard to talk about this film compared to what we've been talking about. I feel like I'm comparing, apples and oranges. Um, because Too Fast Too Furious and Better Luck Tomorrow, I like both movies. They're both very different movies though, so it's hard for me to compare one to the other. But I liked Better Luck Tomorrow. I thought it probably could have had 15 minutes stripped out of it to make it a little bit tighter. But I can't really sort of think too much else that I didn't like about it. I thought it was pretty good.
What about you, Chris? What were your thoughts?
Yeah, I totally agree. I think I can understand the logic about giving the director of this movie a chance with the Fast and the Furious franchise because, this movie, although it's a high school movie through and through, right? It's like it's a movie about the high school experience. It certainly is also not at all about like a real like I can't imagine that there's this kind of world that's like built up and these kind of things that a lot of high schoolers are doing. Um, so it's like a plot that should be adults, but it's got this like high school, kind of story like bolted on. Um, and I think the 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 scenes where you see these characters kind of descend into criminal activity, the way it's edited, the way the story's written, This kind of stuff they get into, I think it's moves at like a good pace. That's probably some of the, that first, I don't know, 45 minutes or something, I think is probably uh, ri- it's it's clearly in the hands of somebody that can handle that kind of character building and like understands how to show the interesting parts of crime and there's no like true like action in it, I guess, except for a couple of fight sequences. But there's I think he handles it well. So I can see the logic of this person being given a chance. Especially he does a movie in between this and Tokyo Drift called Annapolis, which I think is kind of an actiony movie. I haven't seen it, but I think it has a lot of like human drama kind of action in it. Um, but yeah, so anyways, I could, as I was watching it, I was thinking like, okay, I can kind of see how this person would be given a shot to do something with the Fast and the Furious movies, especially the fact that he comes in into like a Asian one, right? Like he does Tokyo Drift, so it's like he comes right in and does like an Asian movie, which kind of makes sense. Seems like he's big at that Asian representation, even if Ebert says he doesn't need to or whatever. But um, I would put this as like a any kind of 90s or 2000s sort of directorial. It's not technically his directorial debut. There's another movie that has like a really wild sounding plot. It's a woman's getting unknown phone calls from a lesbian, and a guy thinks he's a werewolf. That's the hook for the first movie he
Oh, I'm
directed.
sold.
Sure, yeah. Um, but anyways, this is technically a second movie, but I mean, still early on, and this feels like more kind of him finding his style, I guess, or what he would end up doing more. Um, one thing I will quickly say, Zach, I want to hear your general thoughts, but on this one, I like the fact that there are four distinct characters in the main cast. Like I think he does a good job of having like an ensemble cast and having them all be unique and us quickly being able to kind of enter their world and see how they react and understand how they would react to things.
Virgil is just pure chaos. That's all I figured out through the
Oh,
movie.
he's
It's like he's
great.
just he's just pure chaos.
I love that character. Yeah, he's and the actor does a good job with that.
Um, yeah, I'm kind of in the same place you guys are. I think it's definitely different, and I mean it's really here just because Han continues into the series, which is kind of wild to sit here and watch it and be like he's going to get involved in Fast and Furious. That's kind of I kind of see why. Like my theory is it's just because Han just seems like a really cool character. Like he doesn't do much. It's
Yeah,
just
he's
like
just cool.
yeah,
He
he
just
just like
sits back and
smokes a
just he's cool.
cigarette.
That
So
dude, that guy is so cool. I have a man crush on that guy. His name is Sung Kang.
Yeah.
He's
I
so
love
cool.
I love going to his letterboxed page and seeing that it's nothing but Fast and Furious for like 2 through 8 or however many they show on the preview, but number one is Raya and the Last Dragon. I was like, that's just so funny. That's like sums up his whole career. Fast and Furious, and here's some random stuff.
Yep, yep, yep.
Um, but yeah, it's I really think it was a lot more gripping than I was kind of worried about because I did actually think this was his first movie, and high school when you do these high school coming of age things, they can go one of two ways for me. Either they are really interesting, like this one are, or they're just really boring, treading the same ground I've seen like 1,000 times. So
Right.
I was really glad it was the former. I did like, for someone who does work with kids, works with teenagers, high schoolers, and stuff like that. Uh, I really enjoyed the dialogue a lot, like just the way they talk to each other. I don't want to call it psychopathic behavior, but that almost that sense of like they don't understand gravity of situations well at all until it's way too late. It's just they're constantly over their head, but they're confident enough they think they can do anything. I think they captured that like really well. Or a lot of the edginess that they have with the way they speak to each other and things like that. I'm like, yeah, that seems like real high schoolers that I've worked with.
That's a good point. Yeah, you know there's the character of Stephanie Vander Goff, is that right?
Yes.
I thought that was also kind of an interesting addition because there's this random stuff in Better Luck Tomorrow that's covered where I was not expecting it. The whole notion of Asian kids that are adopted into like extremely white families and kind of brought up there. Like going into a movie in the Fast and the Furious franchise, I wouldn't have expected kind of a subtext and something like that, right? But that's so prevalent in America. It's interesting to kind of get that represented on screen a little bit. And I thought the actor there did a great job. I thought she played that role really well.
And like they don't even really highlight it. Like I was watching it going, I was like, wait a second, why are your parents white? And then like it's not like they ever say, oh, and I am Stephanie and I was adopted and raised by white people. It's not like it's just part of the reality. Like nobody
Yes,
ever really talks about it. It's just there.
that's right. Until the very end when he asked if she ever knew her parents and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But at that point, it's like you already know kind of what's going on. But you get that through context clues, never through exposition, which is nice.
Correct, exactly. Like if you weren't paying attention and then that scene happened, you're like, "Wait, why does she not know her family?" You know, it's
Right.
one of those things where if you like half-arsed watch the movie, then you would be confused because they never really telegraphed it. It was just, there was like photos and stuff, and there was just like little scenes here and there, but it's not like a plot point or anything really.
Mm, no. Um, One thing I did not like about this movie, I did not like the main character. I thought he was poorly cast.
Oh, I always have liked.
Really?
Yeah, I like him as an actor. He's
Yeah.
yeah, I've always enjoyed him.
Harry Chan.
Yeah, yeah, he was in the Hatchet movies. It's probably the first time I saw him, but he does that. We were talking about character actor type things. I've always enjoyed him.
I've never seen him in anything, and I thought he was good. I thought he really suited the main role. That kind of like just sort of not really meek. Like meek's probably the wrong word, but just like he's just like an every guy. He's not a jock, but he's not like necessarily a nerd. He's just a regular dude who just kind of dabbles in a little bit of everything. I thought he was good. I'm surprised.
I liked him as the parts where he played like a sort of a nerdy guy. Like I understand why he was cast for that. I didn't believe him when he was like doing blow and beating people up and getting into the crime world. I felt like that was a
Well, I think it's not supposed to necessarily suit him either because he kind of wants out of it fairly quickly when he
yeah.
realizes he's waking up and his nose is bleeding.
Right, right, right. Yeah, okay, that's fair. So if the intent was to not make him believable as that part of it, then I guess I could get behind it. The one scene that I think could have been, or maybe there's more, but one scene that I think could completely have been cut out was where they go to that random party and beat the crap out of that one like white
Yeah, yeah, the white jock. Yeah, calls him. What do they call him again? I don't remember what they call him now.
Oh, I can't remember. But yeah, I was just like, why? Like it didn't that I think that was just like a
I think they wanted to go for like the peer pressure thing, like, but I don't actually think it really adds much to what's going on. I mean, he's doing these criminal activities because he was peer like kind of pressured into them, and wanted some extra cash, and he liked doing like the cheat sheets and stuff like that. But when it got worse than that, I think is when he feels over his head.
yeah.
Well, it kind of starts. It starts more so that he has such a strict regime in
Mhm.
everything that he does, and he likes the fact that when he does something like morally wrong, it allows him to kind of break out of his regime a little bit. So it's one of those things. It's kind of like with the concept of gateway drugs. The cheat sheets was like his gateway drug of he liked the taste of doing something that was just not expected of someone like him who's going to go to an Ivy League school, get straight A's, stuff like that. It's not expected of him at all. So when he does something that's a little bit different and breaks that mold, it's like he just wants more and more and more of it, without even really realizing it himself. So I can understand why he ended up doing worse and worse stuff. I don't think it was necessarily peer pressure. Like, yeah, sure, this Derek guy kind of, urges him on to do it. But he says himself, that he likes the feeling he gets from breaking from his very strict and stringent routines. The way like he feeds his fish the exact amount, every day at the same time. He goes and throws the baskets at the same time for the same amount of time to try and get his percentage up of stuff of free throws and everything. He has such a strict regime with his life. So when he does something that breaks that regime, it does seem to give him it makes him kind of feel a bit more human and life maybe a bit more real, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I'm just realizing it probably would be. Are y'all okay if I just spend 30 seconds kind of like walking through what happens in the story a little bit? Because it
Yeah,
might be
sure.
helpful for people that are listening. Like, it's similar to Lars von Trier. This story is broken up into chapters, and the chapters are vocabulary words that these basically like valedictorian type students are learning to get a perfect score on the SAT, right? So the very like kind of fabric of this structure is that like everything in their life revolves around a perfect score on an SAT, getting into the best college, um, getting internships, having a good career. That very much like pressure that comes from Asian families in America, somewhat stereotypically, but honestly, like it's fairly it's that stereotype is there for a reason. I think at least in a lot of my friends growing up, um, there's this concept of like a tiger mom. It's I know a lot of them. It's not really that much of a stretch. So they don't really you don't like know the parents in this movie that the parents are not the focus, but it's certainly understood where that pressure is coming from. Um, him and his best friend growing up, who are quote unquote the smart kids in their class, and his friend is crazy, strong like Matthew Lillard energy, I think, early on in his career. His name's Virgil. They get sort of caught up in this high school crime ring of sorts by a senior who's also a very good student and the leader of like every club and has good grades and is going to probably a great school, but is kind of leading this like ring of cheat sheets and sort of minor crimes in the school. And the movie starts as they get together with this guy named Han, who's basically just like a Jimmy Dean type or like James Dean type, just kind of sits back and smokes cigarettes and is cool. And he could be anywhere from a high school student to 30 years old. It's hard to tell.
We were debating that when we were watching it too. It's like, does he even go to the school? Like,
Yeah. And they just slowly descend into like more and more crime and like deeper crime as the movie goes on. Then they get over their head and weird things start to happen, right? I mean, that's a fairly right? Like that's kind of a fairly good summary of the film, right? It's kind of like
yeah, I would say that that sums it up pretty well. And now that we're kind of going through it, I'm almost wondering if they put that jock scene in there to kind of set up the end. Like, I'm not going to spoil it, but basically, like the tipping point of everything at the very end. So I almost wonder if it's there for that.
well, I think we might if we're going to talk about the film, I think it might be important to spoil it at some point because I actually didn't like the way that his character broke. So I don't know if there's anything else we should say beforehand, but I'd like to talk about the ending for a minute if y'all are open to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So spoiler warning. We've our first one. So yeah, go for it.
I I mean, for me, out of nowhere, even within the context of the story, out of nowhere, he bashes John Cho's face in with a bat repeatedly, right? He has this like wave of aggression that for
Poor
me,
Harold.
I
That's what
know
I said, Harold, too.
exactly. And it just kind of it feels like it came out of nowhere. I get that he hated that dude. I get it. Like I understand I understand the logic within the film of what got him to that point. I just didn't believe it. I think that's too extreme for him. He was way too controlled. I don't think that's realistic that he would have gone to that extent to snap like that and beat that dude to death with a metal bat.
One thing I'll say in defense of the decision is that John Cho's character is seen repeatedly, essentially emasculating him the whole way through the movie because obviously, he has a crush on John Cho's girlfriend,
Sure.
and John Cho never treats him like a romantic rival. He's always
Right.
just been like this little dork who will take my girlfriend out on dates so that I don't have to bring her out on dates, but then I'm still going to bring her home and whatever. Um, and the dork won't get anything. He like repeatedly over the course of the entire film emasculates the main character whose name I've forgotten. Um,
Ben.
so this kind of I can see that there could be a sort of build up of aggression and anger and sort of pent up feelings where it's almost like once he makes that first strike, it's just like he just goes animalistic with it. I don't think I think you can kind of tell the way like once he makes the first hit, I can understand him makes the first hit, he's angry, he's pissed off, he hates this dude. He's been repeatedly, sort of talked down to and mistreated by him the whole film. And I think once he takes that first shot, it's like it's like he just blacks out, and it's just the rest of it is just pure animal instinct. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I feel similar to that, just in the sense that like he gets like that little bit of power over him because it's something he has not had like at all. Like every time he
Yeah.
tries to take a little bit of power, it ends up going against him. Like he said he won't take her to one of these formals, but he has to anyway because he doesn't feel comfortable with that. And then it's like, well, I need you to do this favor where you rob my parents' house. And it's like, well, I'm not going to do that either. And then he ends up, at least starting to go along with the original plan. It's like every time he tries to like hold steady, he just never gets to.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. I don't know. I didn't like it. And then on top of that, the way that it ended, I have no idea what they were trying to say with the ending. Like because he drives off, with the girl, right? He gets Stephanie, and like she's still kind of pining over Steve in a weird way. Like at some point he's gonna have to admit to that murder. Like there's no, that's not like he's not gonna. If you think about extending that out and they get married, right? Or get into like some kind of long-term relationship, Steve still kind of wins. Like he's going to be present in that relationship forever because she's not going to understand why he just cut her off completely.
And that's
Yeah.
that's another aspect of the power dynamic that Steve has over him. Because even in death, he holds all the power over him.
Yeah.
So I get where you're coming from, but I just don't agree with the way I suppose the angle you're taking on it. It was shocking, but I think you can't really look at it from the angle of I don't think this character would do this because of what we've seen in the film so far. He doesn't seem this kind of character. This is a moment of just like I suppose you'd call it a crime of passion almost.
Sure.
There's an emotional attachment to the crime taking place. It's not a rational decision. It's not like, we saw him plan a murder and then he's going to carry out the perfect murder/murder, perfect crime or whatever. He doesn't seem like that kind of person. So in a moment of kind of essentially a moment of madness, he snaps. And once the first hit is done, it's just kind of like, oh shit, and just doesn't, and just like he blacks out. As to why he doesn't turn himself in afterwards, especially with everything that kind of happens, with Virgil and stuff like that, kind of later on, it seems like he almost kind of regresses back into the character we met at the start of the film, where he's doing his routines and he's not going to stray from his routines, because when he strays from his routines, shit fucking goes wrong. And how long that will last is ambiguous. For all we know, he went straight to the cops as soon as the credits roll. We don't know, and it's left ambiguous. It's kind of up to us to determine how we think his character will handle the rest of his life.
Yeah, it's like
will
that,
he end
because
up
he's on
like
the bed.
Virgil, or will he be, someone like Derek, who will just brush it past and move?
Yeah, and he has that part where he wakes up and he says, "I know what the right thing to do is."
Yeah.
Like
There's
he knows 100% that the only morally correct choice is to call the police.
he says, but it's just not easy or something, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
Which is
you're
not
basically making a choice to like ruin your life. Like, I mean,
exactly.
that's the choice you're making.
And he's an
Like, and that's a
18-year-old
lot of
kid.
yeah. It's like it's a lot of pressure on somebody Yeah, it's not right that he killed the dude. The dude was an asshole, but he didn't deserve to die necessarily. But like,
No,
you're asking an 18-year-old kid to have the maturity to say, "Yeah, I'm gonna basically throw my life away."
no,
Yeah,
there's a little bit of nuance here. I totally understand why he doesn't turn himself in. That's not necessarily like, what 18-year-old would, right? Because especially if you think you can get away with stuff. And even within the movie, there's some good logic on that because, like, when that guy Jesus, when his parents come home, they're probably going to notice that their backyard is tore up, right? They kind of hint of the fact that they did a good job by like cutting those grass squares, and then like digging underneath the grass squares. I guess you can kind of see that, but like still, there's going to be a section of the backyard that is now cut up grass squares as opposed to regular lawn, right? So they probably won't get away with it. Like that body's going to be discovered at some point, right? And it's not like they did a good job hiding their fingerprints. Like their fingerprints are probably all over that dude. Because they were like even holding his head at one point, right?
Maybe that's why
So,
Han is in Tokyo in the next one.
oh, there we go.
Yeah.
Nice, nice. Yeah. I mean, I guess I don't wouldn't have expected to turn himself in. The specific thing I didn't like was as he's driving away with Stephanie I think he calls her Stephanie, as they're driving off together, it's sort of implied that he's gonna just like not mention it and try to like have something with her. Um, I don't know.
which
It
is what a teenager would do.
Yeah, it's like, do I go to jail for the rest of my life or do I get the girl of my dreams?
Yeah,
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, fair, especially
And
after.
I think that's something it does do well is like the immaturity at that age. Like, I mean, it's hard to ask like somebody 30 to make a different choice, but you hope by that point you do make the morally correct choice.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, okay, fine. That's fair. So basically what y'all are saying is that all the illogical stuff that kind of happens and is just kind of represented as just like being a teenager and like of course they're not gonna.
yeah,
Being
exactly.
a dumb
Teenagers
teenage
do
boy.
stupid shit. Yeah,
All right. I mean, I guess I can get behind
what zero pussy does to a motherfucker.
it.
Yeah, and I mean, yeah. So I mean, it's definitely a interesting coming of age story. I almost think of they're not very similar, but for some reason I kept thinking of George Washington with
Oh, interesting.
Green's opening film.
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
It still baffles me that he made Halloween Ends and George Washington. What a combo!
I mean, have you ever looked through like Green's entire filmography?
He probably has the most batshit insane
Yeah.
filmography.
Him and Soderbergh, man. Like, it's like, what do you
Yeah.
do with that?
Yeah.
Oh
Anyway,
man.
sorry.
No, you're good. Do we have any last thoughts on Better Luck Tomorrow as we move into Tokyo Drift? I mean, I know we didn't speak about the character in Tokyo Drift much, but there isn't like really much to talk about with him. He's just hanging out and being kind of cool.
I have to rewatch it anyway. I couldn't tell you about him in Tokyo Drift now.
Oh, I couldn't either, but just I almost wonder how that decision comes about. I don't know. I haven't looked it up if Lynn wrote Tokyo Drift, but like I almost wonder how you get that. Like, hey, I had this character that has about 28 lines in a movie I did. Could I bring him in?
As a
Tokyo Drift. No, it wasn't. It was written by a dude called Chris Morgan.
That's
So,
interesting. Yeah.
so who knows? Who knows? Han?
Yeah.
Who knows
Maybe
how
I'll try to
Han
look it up and
evolved.
see if I can figure out how he ends up there.
Yeah. See if we can get there before we do the next episode. So to confirm then, next time out, listeners, we're going to be doing Fast and Furious Tokyo Drift and then a film called Fast and Furious. Fuck me, it's going to get so confusing.
Not as bad as the Rambo movies.
And then Fast 5. So those are our next three films we're going to talk about next time out. Fast and Furious Tokyo Drift, Fast and Furious, so leave off the Des. And then Fast 5. And have we confirmed we're going to have a special guest next week? Do we have that?
I will 100%, but it should be. We should be good there.
Okay. Do we wanna tell listeners or leave that a surprise for next time?
We'll leave it to a surprise just in case something happens, but I'm
Okay.
fairly certain we should have somebody for
If
episode
if the
Awesome.
special guest comes in, just to drop a clue, it's somebody that has Vin Diesel as their avatar.
2.
Okay.
So it's a relevant one to have him on.
Awesome. Folks, it's been fantastic being back. I can't believe we're talking about these movies on this podcast. We used to talk about Goddard and Hitchcock and good
Well,
movies.
Vin Diesel compared himself to Fellini, so we're not too far off.
Honestly, we're gonna have to spend like
Based.
a section of like an episode one day just going over like Vin Diesel quotes of things he like compares these movies to.
Dude's an artist, man. You know the funny thing about his career, next episode I'm gonna come with a defense of Vin Diesel just as a warning.
Can we wait till GT is on if we're gonna do that? If he comes on, like, can we please wait till then?
Okay, fine. That's actually a better place to do it. I'll
Sounds
wait.
like
I'll
a
wait.
stirring debate.
Yeah, but his first, the reason he got put on the map is because he made a short film that was in Cannes. Like,
Oh,
the dude's an artist.
Oh, I did want to know. I'm glad you brought that up. So if you guys want to, there is like a prelude to the fourth Fast and Furious movie that
yeah.
Vin Diesel directed.
It's called Las Bandoleros or something weird like that, isn't it?
Los
I think there's-
Banderinos, or yeah,
That's it. Something along those lines. Yeah, I'm probably
Yeah.
not going to watch it, but yeah.
Is it a feature or a short?
it's a
It's short.
short. Yeah, it's like I think it's like 15 or 20 minutes.
Okay, yeah, I can do that. And that's before Tokyo Drift or before Fast and
Before
Furious?
it's supposed to be a prelude to Fast and Furious.
Okay, sweet.
Supposedly, I've never seen either of those movies, so I'm just going based on what I have seen.
No, same. All right, cool. Adam, it's great to have you back.
Yeah, glad to have you, man.
Thank you, folks. We'll see you again.